And ladies and gentlemen, we are now live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. We are also on our flagship on sportnarium.com/player. And I want to apologize for the little bit of a delay here because we had some issues on the radio on which I was able to fix. And you can also catch us here for those who are on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and also Linda and Mac McGrath's Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. So I want to thank everybody here for tuning in on Easter weekend. And I'm joined by three of my guys here from the Sportswire radio team, including Justin Gianelli. You've heard Justin's show here throughout the week on the Baseball Banter, and Justin does a great job with that. Also, New York Yankees fan here. I'm only kidding. New York Mets fan, the brute force Brad Weiss, the legendary St. Joseph's New York basketball alum. No longer St. Joseph's Long Island alum. We'll get to that in a little while. Also, of course, coach for our Plainview JFK boys JV team. Also with Level Up, the Long Island Nets, the Long Island Brew Crew, and what else is out there? I'm sure there's much more things I'm missing. And also host of the Talking Rivals, the Liftoff Jets. And what I'm going to open up with here is the New York Islanders. And for some unfortunate, sad reasons, is Chris Pazak. And first, guys, how you doing here tonight?
Doing great.
All right.
All right, that's good to hear. Certainly, I'm glad that everybody's locked in, and I want to thank everybody that's watching and listening. But I do want to kick off the news here that unfortunately rocked a lot of people in the sports world. I can't say it wasn't a shock because it was something we've spoke about here a couple different times in the show, but it is obviously we are speaking about the passing of New York Islanders and hockey great Mike Bossy, one of the greatest goal scorers, and certainly when you think about New York sports history, really one of the greatest athletes of all time, four-time Stanley Cup champion, and practically averaged about 60 goals a season throughout his career. Very short career in the NHL, relatively speaking. But I want to bring in Chris Pazak because obviously Chris is an Islanders fan. Chris was there during all those great years that the Islanders had from 1979 to 1984, winning 4 Stanley Cups in a row, getting to a 5th. And Mike Bossy's obviously the guy there. Obviously, that was right in the thick of it. And Chris, obviously, a very, very sad day. Not only, I think, for Islander fans, but also hockey fans as a whole here. And give me your thoughts on the passing of New York Islanders and hockey great Mike Bossy.
Yeah, it's something that we seen coming, a few weeks ago. Remember they announced that he passed away, and then it was just that he was being put in a facility, and you knew this day was coming, but it definitely doesn't make it any easier. It wasn't that old either. I think he was 65. So yeah, it's been a rough season for the Islander community for sure. Not just on the ice, off the ice as well. You know what? He was a guy growing up. We didn't have cable in my neighborhood yet, so I really didn't get a chance to watch many games. So I would follow hockey in the, just looking at the newspaper.
The box scores, yeah. You get the post of the news or Newsday, and you look it up and you see who scored and everything else like that.
And obviously, Bossy's name would always pop up, always. Big time scorer. Easily one of the greatest scorers of all time. And it's just a shame, like I said, it's just a rough time for the Islander community this year, on the ice, not making the playoffs, obviously. And now, a couple of deaths this year as well, which has been horrible. Obviously thoughts and prayers, condolences to his family, his friends and his loved ones, and obviously to the whole Islander community as well. He's definitely one of my favorite players of all time. I got him up on my wall, obviously.
I saw that. Yeah, I've seen that in the past, sure.
Yeah, so it's sad. He's definitely, whenever you talk to an Islander fan, Bossy's name always comes up as one of their favorite players, of all time. And you know what? Number 22's obviously been up in the rafters forever. It's going to be there forever now. Obviously, it's just it's a sad day. You hate to see somebody suffer, but it's just horrible. And I was thinking about it all day today too, thinking about the great years, and then you read all these interviews from other players, and they always say that the old players are always there. They always are very welcoming. They're very classy, because they want to try to keep the
I always saw them around as a season ticket holder for those years I was a ticket holder. I always saw Bossy and Bobby Nystrom, obviously, and Clark Gillies, and You'd always see Brian Trottier came back, John Tonelli. Obviously, that was a whole other discussion. But you always saw Patrick Flatley, although that's another interesting one. But you always saw a lot of like the old the Islander greats from the '80s and the heyday came back. And I know he had some issues with the previous ownership, and there was some different things that happened there. But I know he was certainly a part of the family. I saw him many, many times in Brooklyn.
Despite the Islanders going through a pretty rough stretch there, we had a pretty rough stretch of being really bad. The organization, with the players was always classy, and to this day, it's always been that way. So,
well, Long Island I always felt like Long Island in a lot of ways to me was a small town and how they treated the Islanders. You'd hear how guys would play softball games to raise money, and a lot of them would stay and live in Long Island. It's different than, we'll get to the Mets and Yankees. We'll get to all that here in a second, but it's always different to me in Long Island, where I think people treated the Islanders a little bit differently than, let's say, in New York City, where you have all this gluttony of sports teams. Long Island really only had the Islanders. I mean, sure, the Jets played at Hofstra, and you had the Nets, I guess, in the 70s, if you wanted to count that. But, the Islanders really were Long Island. That was the identity of Long Island for all those years, even when the team was bad. And it was a long stretch. But to me, Bossy and a lot of those guys really identified with those communities.
Yep, absolutely. I totally agree. And it's still, it was, and it's heartbreaking when they moved, to Brooklyn. That was the worst thing, but at least it wasn't to,
Kansas City or Montreal.
Or the other options. I'll take Brooklyn.
I know that was, it was just,
at least there's an NY at the end,
Right. Yeah. And the black New York jersey. I mean, we could do a whole show on, all that, but just, really, really, really sad day, I think, in the sports world here for New York. And I'll open it up to Brad and Justin. You have any thoughts you'd like to share very quickly on Mike Bossy and obviously his passing before we move on here?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. It is very tough on the hockey community, and even as somebody who's a Devils fan, you could appreciate greatness. You could appreciate the greats of a franchise, and that really is, when you, again, like Chris said, when you think about the Islanders and you think about the dynasty years, you think about Mike Bossy and all the great years he provided, leading the league in goals scored twice, scoring over 60 goals multiple times. He was just a terrific player. And it's just been, I feel like it's just been way too much on the Islander franchise. I mean, Gene Potvin and Clark Gillies and Mike Bossy all within 3 months or so. It's and that's a chapter of Islanders hockey that is filled with greatness. And just to see those guys starting to go, it's tough. It just is. Even if you're not an Islander fan, I mean, it's tough to see.
Yeah, no question. I mean, certainly those guys ain't 80, 90 years old. So you're talking about
that's what's even sad. That's what's even sadder.
Bossy's 65 when he passed away. So I mean, you think about it, 65. I mean, you have a thought or two, Brad, just on it before we move on here and close the chapter, unfortunately, on this, and move on to some other topics that'll be a little bit more happier, I'm sure.
Yeah, obviously, again, Chris and Justin already made great points. But listen, from somebody who lives on Long Island, even though I'm not that big of a hockey fan, and if, my fandom, my family's Ranger fans, so we're not necessarily Islanders fans, but as somebody who's from Long Island and respects the fact that the New York Islanders are Long Island's hockey team, to see some of the great Islanders from, like Justin said, the great days of the Islanders in the past, all pass away in a very short time frame is obviously devastating for hockey here on Long Island and many Long Islanders that love their New York Islanders. So it's a devastating topic. Like you said, it's maybe a little more devastating than the New York Knicks, but in the end, it's something that.
I can bring up the Knicks in a little while if you'd like. I mean, I'd be more than happy to. People like you talking about the Knicks.
No, I wanted to just put some smiles on people's faces because obviously this is a tough topic, and we just hope for the best for their families. A day in which we honored the great Tom Seaver with the New York Mets. These are just some great hockey players that lost their lives, and just devastating to hear about this in such a short period of time. Like Justin said, some of the greats of Islanders history.
Yeah, no question about it. And obviously, again, Bossy passes away at the age of 65 and scores 573 goals. And I was thinking about this very quickly before we move on as I was going for a walk this afternoon before I came on and did a live set for our England audience and our England listeners out there in professional wrestling. And in a lot of ways, Mike Bossy and those Islander teams, I really think, deserve a lot more credit than the wins and losses because they really helped build the game of hockey on Long Island. We think about all the guys that have come out of Long Island and been big-time hockey players. Obviously, Sonny Milano. You think about, obviously, the Drurys. You think about all those different players. Kyle Palmieri was with the Islanders. I mean,
Charlie McAvoy's from
Charlie McAvoy. I mean, listen, obviously, Adam Fox. You can never forget about Adam Fox, right, Brad? I mean, listen, we'll all hear about that from all of our teammates and friends on the Brew Crew if we don't mention Adam Fox. But the point of the matter is, I mean, all those great Islander players, whether you're a Ranger fan, whether you're an Islander fan or a Devils fan or any other team's fan, those guys really did a lot, I think, very similar to what Wayne Gretzky did for the Southern California area for the NHL back in the 80s and 90s. So I think that's really where I think their mark is going to be. And obviously, again, certainly condolences and prayers. And one of my biggest regrets when I was an Islander season ticket holder was I didn't get a chance to really speak to Mike Bossy. I didn't get a chance to really meet him. I mean, I saw Nystrom, Gillies, I saw all those players, Pat LaFontaine. I have a picture somewhere with him, but I didn't get that chance with Bossy. But be that as it may, certainly we give our thoughts and prayers to the family of Mike Bossy and all of the Islander fans and players. And I think I'll leave with this. And obviously, as a reverend, trying to get everybody on a positive spin here, Brian Trottier said that the two things you remember most of Mike Bossy, obviously the goal scoring, but the other thing was he was a family man. He loved his family. He was proud of being a grandfather. He was proud of being a father and being in the community. I think that's what it's always about here. So certainly we give our thoughts and prayers and we move on here. I'll also have an announcement in a little while here before we bring Rob Maraska on at 10:30. I'll actually have an announcement for a new partnership that we finally signed the agreement with and moved on with that. So definitely doing that here. And let's get on here to Major League Baseball, and certainly on a happier note, I guess. I mean, I see Justin and Brad here have the Mets stuff on. And Justin, you were actually there today at Citi Field at opening day, and what a game it was. What a beautiful game to watch, baseball-wise, weather-wise. You could not have asked for a better day weather-wise. Certainly the baseball gods were in our favor here today, Justin, and talk to me about Citi Field opening day and obviously the Mets stars, the Met hot bats continue, and just give me your thoughts of being there today at Citi Field for opening day.
You know, Howie Rose said it best when they were getting ready to present and unveil the Tom Seaver statue. During the 1969 World Series, the Mets had 3 home games, obviously. And the one day that Seaver pitched was the one sunny, perfect weather day. And how fitting today being as gorgeous of a day as possible. You know, it started out with, just gorgeous weather. You had the beautiful ceremony. You know, I don't know if anybody had a dry eye listening to Nancy Seaver talk right before the statue was unveiled. And it's a terrific statue, a terrific tribute to the great Tom Seaver. A larger than life figure. He'll forever be the greatest to ever don a Met uniform. But I do want to say real quick, a part of me is hurt a little bit that it took this long, and he's not around to see this, but because this was long overdue, and I'm glad new owner Steve Cohen pushed the issue on this, and we were able to enjoy a nice day and get a chance to see the statue before the game, and then obviously the celebration of Jackie Robinson Day today, with all the players wearing 42.
So
And
Butch
then-
Husky even back during the game. I mean,
Yeah,
Butch
that was
Husky
one.
alive
That was not
still?
one. That was
I didn't even realize he
when
was
I
alive.
walked into the ballpark this morning. That was not one of the things I was expecting to see on opening day. But Butch Husky, a former Met who wore the number 42.
Yep, he was the last one, right? With the last one, am I mistaken in that?
No, the Mets had Mo Vaughn, and remember Mo Vaughn got grandfathered in because he was wearing it in the early 90s.
How could I forget? Mo Vaughn is a Met. Boy, speaking of bad memories.
Butch Husky was on the 97 team.
I remember
where
Butch Husky
they had the ceremony with President Clinton, the commissioner, Rachel Robinson, to announce that 42 is being retired across baseball. But to the game itself, I mean, everything came up Mets today, from some of the bloop hits early on to the power later on, hitting 4 home runs. And how about the aptly named Robinson Cano, hitting his first home run of the season. And
he's hitting well. I mean, listen, certainly he's been the top of the talk radio all week.
Francisco Lindor had a terrific day with the 2 home runs. I mean, you got another terrific start out of Chris Bassett. I mean, everything from start to finish. Yeah, you want to get on Sean Reed Foley a little bit in the 9th inning, whatever. I hope to not see him again, but be that as it may. I mean, it was all in all just an exciting day. The place was absolutely electric. I mean, I don't know if I've heard Citi Field like that in years. There was a lot of anticipation going into today, and then coming home after a 5-2 road trip to start the season in Washington, and then taking 2 out of 3 in Philly, and then to back it up with a monster 10-3 victory. I don't think you could have asked for it much better. I don't think you could have asked for a better result. There's no way you could come home with a loss after honoring the great Tom Seaver. You just couldn't.
Absolutely. Again, kind of very symbolic. And the Mets again, but the Mets always play well on opening days. Listen, the Mets always start the seasons great. The Mets always can find a way to win these opening days. Let's see where they are in June. I mean, not to be so skeptical. And we'll get Rob Marasco on. He's messaging, talking about his memories. We'll get all that when he comes on here. I do got to work my way around other things before he comes on. But the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, you're going tomorrow. So Justin Gianelli was there today. You're going tomorrow. It would be very ironic if you guys kind of swap seats and we're almost in the same section. I would say, wow, that would really be ironic. I almost have to ask then, did Justin sit and where you're sitting tomorrow? But obviously the Brute Force, give me your thoughts on the day. I'm sure you found a way to sneak into at least listen to the game on the radio, and just overall impressions on really one of the most important days and impactful days I think the Mets have had really in a long time, maybe since the 2016 team, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I'll answer your first question, Tom. I'll be sitting in left field tomorrow. That's the first.
Where'd you sit, Justin? Where'd you sit today?
I was sitting in section 509.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be in 137 tomorrow. So I'm excited for that. Hopefully I can catch a home run. But the Mets exhausted a lot of home runs today. So hopefully they hit as many tomorrow. But we'll see about that. But to get on the first point, obviously, as Justin said, to start the season, this is a big way to start the year, winning 3 out of 4 in Washington. Really should have won 4 out of 4 if you didn't blow the lead.
I know. You said that to me on Instagram. Most Met fans would have said, 5-2, I'll sign up. You were one of the greedy ones saying, we should have been 7-0.
Exactly. I think we should have been 7-0. I mean, we blew the game in Philadelphia, too, that we had.
No, the Philadelphia one, fair point. Listen, fair point. Fair point.
Yeah, you're up 4, and then, you blow it quicker than a New York minute in the 8th inning. So, that was not a good loss. But, listen, in the end, the Mets have looked good. Their pitching has been absolutely phenomenal. I think their starting pitching ERA is like 1.32 over the first 8 games, which is unbelievable as a staff. But, they're getting it done both pitching-wise and hitting-wise. I mean, you look at the top of the Mets lineup, you see Starling Marte hit a home run today, and he's certainly been a spark plug for this lineup. Francisco Lindor, it's 2 home runs today, 1 on each side of the plate, left and right. And he's hit the ball extremely well. And I told you guys before we started this season that the key for me was Francisco Lindor. If he hits this way and he plays the way that he's capable of, he plays up to that $341 million we gave him, this team is a totally different team. And I think the way that he started the season is obviously great. But I will say, because, I'm not going to do what I did with the Knicks and go New York stand up and go crazy about the Mets. Okay? We all know, all right, that the Mets start off every season good.
Exactly my point I just made.
Tom, you're 100% right. The question is, how are they going to sustain it? Now, to also be fair to all those out there, Yankee fans and everyone else who want to hate on the Mets, yes, we've played the Washington Nationals, and yes, we're playing the Arizona Diamondbacks, who half the roster, I don't even know who the hell they are. Honestly, okay, all right, you want to say that? Sure. But at the same time, guess what? You got to take care of business. You got to beat these teams. And right now, the New York Yankees are struggling to beat one of those teams right now in the Baltimore Orioles. So, the Mets took care of business today. They're going to have to continue to do that this series. They play the Diamondbacks next weekend again in Arizona. So these are the games you got to take care of, and you got to get off to a good start. So the Mets certainly did that. And then to get to the ceremony, because I'm extremely excited to take a picture with that Tom Seaver statue outside Citi Field tomorrow. I will be taking a picture. Certainly, I'll be there early. But ultimately, it's just such a
shout
great.
out to Anthony Finkel, by the way. The Mets and Jets equals off-season champions. Yeah, I mean, I guess Big Fink is right, and shout out to him because he's out in Midtown Manhattan listening to us. And I have to say,
Stay away from those rats.
I have to say one thing. I mean, I guess if you were to hang up banners for off-season championships, I mean, the Mets would have the same amount as the Yankees, and the Jets would have probably just as many Super Bowls as the Patriots. I mean, am I wrong in saying?
No, not really. Not really with the Mets, because the Mets under the Wilpons didn't spend any money.
Right. Yeah, but
you
did bring up Mo Vaughn in that 2002 year. We brought in Jeremy Burnett and Roberto Alomar and Mo Vaughn.
Yeah, pre-Madoff they spent money, but post-Madoff they didn't spend a ton of money. But I will tell you, speaking of spending money on Starling Marte was the right decision. I mean,
he was good today. I'll tell you that much.
You saw today with him stealing second base and the catcher throwing in, and the catcher got a perfect throw because the ball was high. You want the ball high so you pop right up and throw. He throws it in center field. Marte ends up on third base. I mean, the dividends he's paid early on, playing good defense in right field, at the plate, stealing bases. The Mets have speed here, and shout out to Travis Jankowski too. Had a terrific
yeah, he was
play.
good.
Stepping in for Brandon Nimmo
nice little
today.
pickup too, and another local guy here. Nice. Yep. Nice.
No, yeah, I mean, I was Justin took that right out of my mouth. I mean, Travis Jankowski, I mean, he did it all today. He had a bunt single. He had a single to left field. He was hitting the ball over the place. And his center field play, I mean, you watch the Diamondbacks trying to catch fly balls today. It was a circus. I mean, the Mets,
coming in there.
The circus, Jankowski did a nice job taking care of center field for us today. And, with Nimmo and Canna being out, we didn't really miss a beat with, Jankowski out there. That's a credit to him. But I was going to get to the Tom Seaver thing. I mean, first of all, the sculptor of that beautiful monument outside Citi Field deserves a lot of credit. I mean, what a great job he did with everything, when it comes to it being off the mound, to Tom Seaver's, epic wind up, and then the leg getting close to the ground and the foot with the dirt drag. I mean, everything was just perfect. And, to see the family talk as well, Justin mentioned it. How couldn't you, have a little tear for the family? And obviously you wish Tom Seaver could have been there for that great ceremony. And that statue should have been up a long time ago. I mean, Tom Seaver, like you said, best man of all time.
The minute he retired.
It's ridiculous that we're in 2022. Thanks to Uncle Steve, he's finally trying to figure it out. And you mentioned spending money too, Justin. I mean, I know he was there today, Justin Gianelli. How couldn't you spot Uncle Steve's money into Citi Field? I mean, all those great new electronic boards all around the stadium.
Yeah, I sent a picture in our group chat of the new outfield scoreboard where the out of town scores.
Yeah,
no longer like the digital lights. It's just an electronic scoreboard. Yeah, there's electronic scoreboards now all over the outfield. And
and next year, we have to be patient for next year. But next year, the center field scoreboard is going to be humongous. So
yes,
it's Uncle Steve, and Uncle Steve.
It reminds me that scoreboard's going to look like, you remember watching The Simpsons, one episode where they had like Homer's Springfield team and the Major League Baseball team, and they had the scoreboard, and the scoreboard just literally
Oh man,
Like
it's
the whole
huge.
thing. That's what's gonna happen.
It's huge. So listen, it's Uncle Steve's wallet. He cares about Mets fans. He's a Mets fan himself. His wife is doing great things in the community as well for the Mets. So you got to give credit where it's due to this ownership group and the Mets themselves, and give credit to the team. They're playing great baseball. Buck Showalter's done a tremendous job as manager of the first 8 games of the season. And, I'll say one last thing, as Justin had to bring it up, and I got a Mets fan on my case right now saying that Sean Reed Foley needs to go back to his former hairdo with, the mustache and everything to get his act together. Ever since he shaved everything, he's been awful. So Sean Reed
wasn't
Foley,
very good. He was I knew that was coming. He was the one, I guess, negative here today.
Yeah, but I want to give a proper plug. The man who sculpted it, his name is William Behrens. He's the same guy who sculpted the Willie Mays statue that's outside of Oracle Park.
Oh, okay.
And I gotta get
the Tony Gwynn statue too outside of that.
And I gotta get to a comment, obviously, from somebody near and dear to Mr. Brufors, Brad Weiss. Obviously, the better athlete in the immediate household here. And of course, we're talking about Mr. Joe Weiss. Do we call him what, Mr. Super Force or Strong Force? I've lost count of which one's the forces at this point. I feel like I got the forces names screwed up on last week's belated birthday wish to your mother. But anyways, he says here, Trae Young is doing his thing to the Cavs, brings back the ugly memories of last year. We had 8 points at the half, and he's over 30. Yeah, that's a fair play there. Would you like to comment on that, Mr. Brufors? Would you like to comment on that?
Well, he's mentioning this because, first of all, I'll give him a shout out right now. I'll give a shout out to James Cronin, who is one of the biggest Trae Young fans out there. And I was all happy at halftime because I'm rooting for the Cavaliers to win this game. I did not want to see the Hawks win, and I knew that James Cronin would get on my case. And now, just perfectly, when I was watching, Trae Young was doing absolutely nothing. He was awful.
I was watching the game, and I think Cleveland was up 12 right before the end of the half, and I looked up before we came on the air. They were only up 4, and now I checked it thanks to the crack staff. Atlanta's up 6 with 3:20.
And like my dad said, Trae Young's going off. So just memories that we do not want to remember of Trae Young continuing to kill my New York Knicks, and he's not just killing the New York Knicks. He's killing just about every team, and I'm just not happy. I hope the Cavs pull this off. I'm rooting for him.
Well, we're going to find out. They're on the clock literally here, and obviously, again, the Atlanta Hawks. That would be an interesting series, Miami and Atlanta. I do think Atlanta might have a shot there against Miami. Could be an interesting series to this. We'll get into some of the NBA, obviously, for the Tobacco Road radio crowd here, for sure, undoubtedly. But, Chris, I know I got the Mets side of things, but I'm watching the Yankees, and I'm watching yesterday, and I see Aaron Boone have to pull Aroldis Chapman. I know it's early, and the Yankees bullpen was really good other than that. I mean, does that worry you at all that Aaron Boone had to pull Aroldis Chapman in a game like that? I mean, give me your thoughts on that. And give me the Yankees take also since we last spoke.
No, with Chapman, you know what? We've seen this every year with him, and he has his moments. And then he goes back to being, one of the better closers in the league. I'll be honest, I even seen Rivera go through moments like this too, where he had he always had a stretch of 3-4 appearances where he just didn't have it. I guess it's like a slump for a hitter, right? The best hitters go into a slump. Yeah. Closers go.
The old adage is, listen, Tony Gwynn would hit 333, but you failed 2/3 of the time, right?
Right. Exactly. Nobody's perfect. Even, listen, Rivera's the greatest. He was never perfect, right? I'm not really worried. Listen, even if Chapman, let's say worst case scenario, he's like this all year. I don't think he will be, but if he loses it totally, that's easily the one position where we could, we got Loizaga as a backup closer, and the bullpen has been very strong. So I'm really not worried about Chapman. I think he'll be fine. I think he's just, he has these moments. But to get just going back to the Yankees as a team, splitting against Toronto, I thought was really big.
Yeah, I was okay with that. I was okay with the split.
Yeah, that's my goal. My thinking going into the series was, if we split, I'll be happy. Anything better, it's gravy, but a split I'll be happy with. And they came out with 2-2. That's not bad. They shut them out twice. That's pretty impressive right there. Some Yankee fans are jumping the cliff with Garrett Cole. They think, he's done.
Yeah, my brother and I were talking about that. My brother Sean Bryce, who sometimes listens as a Yankees fan, he was kind of he's on the fence with Cole.
I
Yeah.
get it, but the one home run he gave up to the first one, Hicks should have had, right? The one that went over the wall after he caught it. And then the second one, I mean, you got to give Vlad Guerrero 100% credit on that one. I mean, the ball was off the plate, about 2 or 3 inches inside, and he still hit it, over the wall. So I'm not worried about Cole either. I think he'll be fine,
Yeah, we'll
Just
certainly
a
see.
hit for us.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, listen, to win 4 out of 7 against Boston and Toronto, got to be happy. And Yankees are 1-1 here in the bottom of the 8th. Thanks to the crack staff for giving this update. And Anthony Finkel chimes in here and says Kevin Love and the Cavs are in a play-in tournament, and LeBron and the Lakers are at home watching. Yeah, but I mean, if the Cavs lose here, they are at home watching. So I mean, they played an extra 2 games, I guess, theoretically, and had an extra 5 days of the season. I mean, still almost the same thing. And although I will say Love did look good against the Nets. I mean, I haven't got a chance to watch much of the second half, obviously, with the Hawks and Cavs, but Love still had his moments, I have to say. And he definitely looks older than I realized. He's in his 14th year in the league. He looked like he's in his 24th year in the league. Between Love and Rondo, I can't believe the two of them have 30 years experience in the league between them. So, I mean, those are some thoughts there. And obviously, we're talking all things related here to the world of sports with 3 of my guys from Sportswire Radio. That is, of course, Chris Pazak of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals Show, the Brute Force Brad Weiss, clearly a New York Mets fan from our now St. Joseph's, New York. St. Joseph's, New York basketball alum and the Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV team, also Level Up Basketball Organization, LI Brew Crew, and the Long Island Nets, and Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show here. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, do give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. I want to make the announcement now while I've got a chance to do it. Starting this Tuesday and most Tuesdays, right around 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be covering the Massachusetts Pirates, the Indoor Football League champions, who are undefeated right now, 3-0, will be in action tomorrow. Tomorrow night at 7:30, they'll be on the road against the Green Bay Blizzard, and I'm obviously looking forward to the opportunity to speak with the team and talk about all the latest happenings with the team. We'll do about a 15 or 20-minute show, depending on shows here in time, and we'll air those also on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. And I want to thank Jake Igniski for the opportunity for us, who obviously set it up, who's involved with the team also. Does some other work outside of that, and I want to thank him for the opportunity for allowing Sportswire Radio to cover the Massachusetts Pirates. They just had the league's Offensive Player of the Week and quarterback Alejandro Benefield, so a lot to talk about there. They've got a lot of star players, and the Indoor Football League is a very, very important tool. It's a very, very important league. You see a lot of guys who are on NFL practice squads, and also you see them in and out of places like the Arena Football League and the USFL, a number of different places. So it's a really important development and a stepping stone. And the Massachusetts Pirates are one of the premier football teams, and I'm looking forward to obviously being the flagship. We'll do it starting 6:15 this Tuesday. We'll have Jake come on and we'll speak about that. We'll also play it on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. So again, I want to thank Jake Igniski for the opportunity for allowing us to cover the Massachusetts Pirates. And if you like what you hear from the Massachusetts Pirates and all the things that the team is doing and updates on everything that the guys are doing, you definitely want to follow them also on Twitter at @Mass_Pirates. That's Mass_Pirates. And you can also follow the team on Instagram as well. You can do so by following them on Instagram at mass.pirates. So that's Mass_Pirates on Twitter. Instagram, mass.pirates, and I want to thank them for the opportunity, and we're looking forward to starting that here this Tuesday on Sportswire Radio. You can catch that on all of our social media channels, so looking forward to getting the ball rolling on that as we talk all things related here to the world of professional sports and much, much more here. And I want to go over to the NBA very quickly back once again before I get into baseball, because I know I'm going to have Rob Maraska come on here. We'll spend a lot of time on baseball, undoubtedly, but I actually, before I do that, I have a John Gonzalez comment, which I have to.
There he is. I was going to say, where is John Gonzalez?
Wow.
Maybe he was laying low. I don't know, maybe taking a nap. I mean, I guess it's kind of nap weather right now. He said, here's the John Gonzalez comment before I get into a little bit of NBA. He said, nice hat, Brute. Did Walmart have a big sale? I mean, well, did Walmart have a big sale?
You know, John Gonzalez, what's with you and Walmart? You know, that must be your favorite store. You always got some comment about Walmart. But This hat I actually got at a Mets game. All right, it was a giveaway hat. So, all right, this is not from Walmart. I did not pay for it. All right, I got it at a Mets game a few years ago. So.
You know what my first inclinations from the hat was? My first thought was like it was a batting practice helmet. That was my first thought.
No, it's a hat, and it was giveaway. I think the Nathan's Hot Dogs was the sponsor. I think it's on the back of the hat. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I could see that. Nathan's Hot Dogs. I could see that. Yeah, that's a. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. Do you have a Walmart near Plainview? I'm trying to remember where Walmart is on Long Island. I'm trying to.
Oh, we got a bunch of Walmarts. Don't worry. I shop there sometimes, but not a lot. I mean, John Gonzalez actually up there every week.
Full disclosure, in one summer, I lived in Connecticut, and I don't want to make my uncle sound like Vince McMahon, but he actually lived near Vince McMahon at the time in Greenwich, Connecticut, so that's obviously a tip there. But the one thing to do in Connecticut where we lived was going to Walmart. So I have to say that was all I did that summer. All I ever did was go to Walmart. So, I mean, there are some parts of the country where Walmart's the only game in town, literally. So, I mean, and John Gonzalez has got a funny one here. All American sponsored the hat. Yeah, I mean, maybe they did. Who knows? I mean, we'll find out here and have a few shout outs here. Hi, Tom. Yes, hi. How are you? It's obviously a friend of the show and Anesta Glenn. So obviously that's always good that people are tuned in here. So certainly Walmart was not sponsoring the Brewforce's hat. The Brewforce does shop in Walmart, but I can't blame him for shopping at Walmart because I remember buying like a Rolex watch at Walmart. So I have to say I don't have all bad memories of Walmart. Obviously in New York City, we don't have Walmart for some goofy reason, but certainly on Long Island and in Connecticut, we have them, and that's a separate topic. But I want to get to the NBA real quick because obviously for Tobacco Road Sports Radio and Desmond Johnson, I want to thank him for his support. I mean, I want to recap very quickly the Nets and their game and their victory over the aforementioned Cleveland Cavaliers. And Justin, you kind of nailed it from the start. I mean, the Nets came out the first quarter and just put a whooping on the Cavs, and they kind of let the Cavs kind of hang in there. The Nets took control of the lead. He had a big lead in the third quarter, and Cleveland just hung around there. But I think ultimately what happened was some role players the Nets have, like a Bruce Brown and a Nick Claxton, and obviously, Kyrie Irving played out of his mind and made some shots that I played an Xbox NBA 2K19 I made. But obviously, recap that the Nets, how they are going to be playing this Sunday Easter, 3:30 against the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I mean they played a really strong game on Tuesday night, and I did have a feeling that the Cavaliers would make their run and get back into the ball game, but unlike some of the previous games to close the season, like against Cleveland on the Friday night prior to the end of the season, there came a point where you thought maybe the Nets are actually going to lose this game.
I kind of thought it in the fourth quarter. I'm not going to. I think they got to 5. Cleveland was 5 and then 6. I was like, oh.
Well, no. Well, my point being, on Tuesday night there was not a point where I felt like the Nets were going to actually lose the game.
Okay.
They kept up the intensity defensively. I think that was one of the biggest keys. I mean, you saw a couple of massive blocks from Kevin Durant, and in one possession he has the block at one end, and then he goes right down the floor and then gets the ball, feeds Drummond for a massive dunk that forces a timeout early on. I mean, the level of intensity for everybody, whether it was Bruce Brown, Nick Claxton.
We were talking about this during the game. I mean, to me, he might have been my role player of the game.
He's a high energy, high intensity guy. He could be a rim protector on one end and then provide you some points down low. When Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving draw the double team. But I mean, Kyrie Irving, there was no defense for him on Tuesday night. I mean, it just goes to show how he's one of the best players in the world. I mean, and Kevin Durant is obviously one of the best players in the world. We all know that. And, one of the things we've seen, which makes them even more deadly if other guys are making shots, is the facilitating ability of Kevin Durant. I mean, his assists have gone up as
10 assists, I think, on
he had 10 assists, but his assists have gone up as teams are putting more, calling more double teams, and getting the ball out of his hands, and other guys are making plays, whether it's Brown, whether it's Claxton, whether it's Andre Drummond. The one player I need to see a little more from is Seth
Seth
Curry.
Curry. Yep. You read my mind.
It's kind of hard to wonder how, how his ankle is.
Because he should really be the third option on this team right now. He should really.
You would think he's the third option, and you need more consistency out of Patty Mills as well.
Yeah,
but
I can see that. Yeah,
you take what you can with them. You just got to keep up the defensive intensity come Sunday, because now you're dealing with two beasts in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Those guys are going to be a handful. Not having Robert Williams will hurt them down low, especially going up against Drummond and Claxton. Al Horford and Daniel Tice don't present nearly as much of a threat.
Well, Al Horford's not the player he was,
not at all. But they could score. They could score with their wing players, and they're a very, very dangerous team. They're a well-deserving 2 seed. I mean, the top couple seeds in the conference are going to be, top 3 seeds are going to be right there neck and neck battling for the Eastern Conference. I mean, Miami's no slouch as a 1 seed, obviously. And now that the game just ended, they're going to be getting the Atlanta Hawks come Monday, as the Hawks now grab the 8 seed with their win over Cleveland. That's going to be a fascinating series. But, the Nets have what it takes to win. Whether or not they do so is going to be a total.
They're the most probably intriguing 7 seed here, and certainly we'll get a lot into that in the brute force Brad Weiss. I guess maybe he left because there was a question posed from Anthony Finkel, and it's an interesting one. And I was going to get the brute force perspective on it, along with the Nets game. And he says it's time for a Sportswire Radio charity boxing match. John the All-American Gonzalez versus the brute force Brad Weiss. I mean, I guess, and John Gonzalez says, we all know the most exciting team in the NBA plays at MSG. Just ask Brad. Yeah, I mean, that's the case. But, I mean, I almost am tempted to ask. I mean, John Gonzalez and the brute force Brad Weiss in a boxing match. I mean, something tells me here that would be a fun match. I don't know who I want to put
How about a basketball match, a little one-on-one?
Well, I've got Steve. Listen, Anthony Finkel knows this. I've said it on the record. Steve Saperstein and Brad, because Steve actually played basketball and he had a distinguished career. And there he is. There he is. The brute force. I actually thought maybe the question that Anthony Finkel had posed about it's time for a Sportswire Radio charity boxing match between John the All-American Gonzalez versus the brute force Brad Weiss. Maybe he almost didn't want to answer the question or plead the fifth, or maybe he just didn't want to be in the ring. I don't know. I mean, Tyson Fury's fighting next week. I mean, maybe he was suiting up for that as a sparring opponent. And I mean, do you want to care to comment on that? I mean, a potential boxing match?
Now we're talking.
Listen. You know what? First of all, we all know I'm a big man. I ain't afraid to get in no ring.
I covered you, Brad. I covered your career.
But, John Gonzalez, he's on fire. He used to tell me that, I should stop drinking the coffee or the hot chocolate. He's got to calm down a little bit. Saying that he can dunk on me, that's a little crazy. But, one thing that just happened, Tom Bryce, unfortunately, the Atlanta Hawks won. I got cut off here. My buddy James Cronin, I got to give him a shout out because he's absolutely roasting me at this current. Give him a buzz. He's roasting me at this current minute. He just texted me. He said 2 words: Ice Trey, and he sent the picture of Trae Young doing his, whatever nonsense, and calling him the GOAT and all that. And the one thing I will say, James, was the same kid who got some money when St. Peter's won. He bet on St. Peter's. He also told me before the game that Trae Young.
When did he bet on them going to the Elite Eight?
No, he bet on them to win a game, and he ended up winning money in a game in which they weren't going to. No one expected them to win.
Oh yeah, the Kentucky game. Yeah, no.
But he before the game tonight, I said, James, Trae Young's going to drop 20 points. He said, no, Brad. Trae Young's going to drop 38 to 40 points and have 10 assists. What did Trae Young do? He had 38 points and 10 assists. So he's absolutely roasting me right now. My phone's lighting up as we speak. Props
to him come on the stream, James Cronin. Instead of him texting you, how about him get on the stream?
I don't know about that. Some of these guys are wild, but Listen, I'll give him his flowers.
We have John Gonzalez on here, and we have obviously one of Anthony Finkel's friends who was watching, Chris Urban. For those who don't know who Chris is actually a burgeoning professional wrestler. Listen, at the end of the day, we have wild people on Sportswire Radio. Did you not know, the Brute Force, that we had 4 professional wrestlers on today out of England, and they're all either one's in a hair versus hair match. The other one is in a match to decide if he's going to be competing for the world championship. The other one's on commentary, and the other one's fighting with the commentator. So, if you thought that we weren't wild, you clearly are in the wrong place, to Brute Force.
No, I know we're wild, but I just want to give James his flowers, and that he could keep quiet now. But anyway, let me get to Justin Gianelli's team, the Brooklyn Nets, because I'll give them their flowers as well. Because obviously they got a nice win against the Cavaliers. As you guys were talking about, Kyrie Irving obviously had a great game, but don't discredit Darius Garland in that game. They both had 34 points. They were going toe-to-toe.
Yeah, great second half. Absolutely.
But, you mentioned the difference is the others. Obviously Kevin Durant being one of those others. Bruce Brown having 18 points. The 2 bigs for Brooklyn, Drummond putting 16 points in and Claxton with 13. That's how you win games in the playoffs, by getting points from others. And that's exactly what happens. So you give credit to the Nets. The Cavaliers, obviously, tough loss, and now obviously their season is over, which I'll get to my comments on the play-in tournament later. I'll have a comment on it later when we talk basketball after Rob Maraska. But what I will say right now is going into the Brooklyn Nets series against the Celtics, it's going to be very interesting to see this series. It's going to be a very good series. I'm excited to see what the Celtics can do this year after they've been eliminated by the Nets a couple times in the playoffs the last few years. But Jason Tatum is going to be obviously one of the keys in this series. But we all know one of the most important things is going to be whether Robert Williams' availability.
And Robert Williams' availability is apparently the same as the Brute Force Brad Weiss's internet connection here. So certainly that probably is an indication of where we go here. And John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, I've got game, Tom. I'm like the legendary Dominique Wilkins human highlight film. John, if I could actually pull out my basketball card collection of Dominique Wilkins, if it was a little closer to my recording setup here, I would certainly pull out that card. But certainly that's strong words and strong commentary there, to say the least. But certainly I would love to find out, John. Obviously, I'd love to find out and see you in a basketball court and see if that would be the case between the highlight film Dominique Wilkins. If you're half the man of Dominique Wilkins, I certainly say that I put my money on you in a game of basketball against the Brute Force. But I'm not quite sure, but clearly he's having some internet difficulties, and we'll bring on Rob Maraska here in a few minutes or so to set things up, and we'll go back into basketball. And actually, Anthony Finkel has a comment here, so I really want to hear this. This is a funny comment. I'm going to put my Howard Stern hat on here for a second. So he says, went to a museum today. The bathroom at the Met smelled worse than the urinals at MetLife. Oh, boy. And he says MetLife Stadium equals Metropolitan. I'm trying to think. The last time I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, not that I went there often, I'm trying to think. This had to have been when I was in college. This had to be about maybe 2007, 2008. Were the bathrooms really that bad? I don't remember the bathrooms being bad.
I don't remember. I went last time I went was for a college class as well, but that was too. Like 2000. I was still at
2010 maybe?
No, I was still at Bergen Community, so that was 2012. That was before I went to Ramapo College.
Well, the bathroom, I'm just trying to remember. Were the bathrooms really that bad at the Met? I'm trying to think. When I went,
I don't recall.
I don't know. That's really, I guess. What were you doing at the Met today, Anthony Finkel? That's what I want. Are you doing what were you doing there? He says, and John Gonzalez has a funny line. Yeah, Finkel, they want to hire you to clean. Yeah, was that the catch, Anthony Finkel? Would you want me to promote the plug? Listen, I'll be happy to do your plug in the meantime. While we figure that out about the Metropolitan Museum of Art here in terms of the bathroom urinals. That's certainly, I didn't realize that the urinals were that bad. I guess things have changed over the years. Then again, the last time I was there was like 2008. So certainly, again, that's the case here. But obviously, again, if you do like what you hear from Anthony Finkel and DPH Property Service, and he says here, family time. Oh, I guess your family's the Renaissance type. I didn't realize your family was into the arts. I'm trying to remember if your family was really into the arts, Anthony Finkel. And we're joined here by the brute force to mercifully, thankfully, change the topic here about the Metropolitan Art Museum bathrooms, the brute force. I mean,
you know what? I got a good question for you guys.
Yeah, talk to me. Jump in.
Who has the most pressure going into the playoffs, the NBA playoffs right now? Is it James Harden and Philadelphia, or is it someone else? I think Harden has the most pressure, right?
If you're talking about an individual player, I would say yes, it's James Harden. I think as a team, it's the Nets. The Nets were supposed to be a championship contending team, and yes, they're now in a 7-seed situation, but you know, they have championship aspirations. Going out in the first round, going out in the second round, even losing in the conference finals is just not acceptable. So I think as a team, it is the Brooklyn Nets. As an individual, it is James Harden, and we've just seen how awful he's been for the Sixers lately. His shooting is horrendous. His conditioning is
they're 16-8 in spite of him. They're 16-8 since the trade, but really in spite of James Harden. That's kind of
Joel Embiid's played at an MVP level, and they've gotten some really good performances from Tyrese Maxey. So I mean, they're winning. Now, granted, I'll give Harden credit. He's been great with facilitating and dishing out a ton of assists. But you need to see him shoot better than 3 for 15 and 4 for 12. You need better than that from him.
No question about it here in the Brute Force. Welcome back. I guess it's a recurring theme here, but you want to chime in here, and then I'll get to the Anthony Finkel plug because I actually have the plug ready to go. So you want to chime in here on some of those things there, Brad?
Oh, of course I do. And in fact, I'm going to make it even better because I'm going to give you a brute enforcement list. The first one of the day, a brute enforcement list. I'll give you my top 3 players under the most pressure this postseason. Top 3 players. All right. Number three. All right, is Jimmy Butler in Miami. Okay. Why Jimmy Butler in Miami? Well, this is a team that finished the top seed in the East. This is a team that was in the finals in the bubble 2 years ago. This is a team that has the 6th man of the year, that has a culture, that is playing good basketball, that is a championship-level team that Pat Riley's been putting together. This is time for him to have a big postseason once again and lead this Miami Heat team to where they should be, which is, deep into the playoffs. I think Jimmy Butler has a lot of pressure on him. He's been in and out of the lineup all season with injuries, and he's had those altercations on the bench like we've seen. This is time for him to step up here in the playoffs. He's done it before, but it is time this season. Number 2 is going to be James Harden for me. Number 2. And the reason why he's number 2, I'll say number 1 in a second. The reason why for James Harden is really because, listen, he's, in Philadelphia. Yes, he wants a contract. Okay, but somebody's going to pay him. Someone's going to give him, a contract. But yes, the playoffs. He's been terrible in the playoffs. He's really been a choke artist in the playoffs. He hasn't performed in the playoffs. And he has his best teammate arguably he's ever had in Joel Embiid. If he doesn't get it done, which you'll hear what I have to say later on my playoff predictions, I'm going to tell you whether he gets it done or not. But ultimately, he has to. It's time. He went to Philadelphia for a reason, to win a championship. And ultimately, he has to at least win a playoff series, I think multiple playoff series, to just get respected in Philadelphia. If he doesn't, they're going to ridicule and kill him in Philadelphia. But he's not number 1 on my brute enforcement list. Number 1, you ready for it? Is Chris Paul.
I knew you were going.
I'm going to tell you why it's Chris Paul. Chris Paul is 38 years old. Chris Paul is currently in the Western Conference with the best team in the Western Conference in a very, what I would like to call, weak Western Conference. Because really it goes Phoenix, maybe Memphis, and then there's a deep dive after that. There's really no other team playing at their level. And if Chris Paul this year cannot get back to the finals and win a finals, when is he? Because he's running out of time, and this is probably his best opportunity. Yes, he has Devin Booker next to him as well that has to play well, But CP3, it's do or die. It's now or never, because the Western Conference is going to get better. Denver is going to get pieces back next year. Other teams are going to come back more formidable next year. If CP3 don't get it done now, I don't think he's winning a championship. This is his time this season.
That's a good one. I knew you were going there. Obviously, with Chris Paul and the age, that's an excellent one. I mean, Jimmy Butler. I forgot about Jimmy Butler. That's a good one. Obviously, again, another controversial guy, and James Harden. Obviously, we just spoke about him. Before I move on to baseball, we'll come back to basketball for sure, and I'll even get the NFL draft. But I do want to get a plug in for Anthony Finkel, of course, and DPH Property Maintenance Service, because again. Listen, who wants to deal with all that garbage? Who wants to deal with sorting out those recyclables? You need the professionals at DPH Property Maintenance Services Trash Genie, because if you're a landlord, a busy professional, a parent, or a senior, we handle your trash, keep your curbside clean, as we've seen them obviously over by Gateway down in Starrett City out there in Brooklyn. They were doing some great work over there, and obviously in Manhattan and Cobble Hill in downtown Brooklyn. Boy, that's two polar extremes there, Anthony Finkel. You were down over by Gateway out there almost in Starrett City. Then you're in Cobble Hill. Two different extremes, but that's why DPH Property Maintenance Service is the best in the business. And you definitely want to save your time and energy by just calling the professionals. And you can do that because weekly plans start at $40. And you can call DPH Property Maintenance Service at 347-228-2625 or sign up. Very easy to do so at dph.nyc, and you can use the promo code Sportswire and get your first week free. And of course, once again, if you're a professional, you're a landlord, a parent, a senior, you name it, you call Anthony Finkel, you tell him the Sports Report sent them, you tell him Sportswire Radio and the gang here, and all you got to do is call 347-228-2625 or sign up at dph.nyc. And of course, you can also follow the guys on Facebook and make sure that you do that. We'll get Rob Morosco on here in a second. He's got his Mets gear on. I mean, Chris and I were the only normal ones today. Chris, we were the normal ones today. We didn't put on Mets gear. I mean, we were normal, but we're obviously joined here by Rob Morosco, who I know has got his memory time machine ready to go here and talk some Mets. And obviously, we'll get to basketball in a little while for sure. And Brad's having some technical difficulties. It is one of those nights, but certainly, Mr. Morosco, I want to get your perspective because obviously you were locked in, obviously watching from, I guess it was 10:30 was the ceremonies that started. The game was a little after 1 o'clock, and you were pretty much locked in. So give me your thoughts on the Mets opening day and the ceremonies here for Tom Seaver.
Well, the ceremonies were great. That statue is beautiful. Like Brute Force says, I can't wait to get a picture taken of it. The next time I go to Citi Field, it just was awesome. I mean, the crowd was amazing, and it was an unusual opening day for the New York Mets. They won. Everybody was happy. Home runs were going out of Citi Field, and the weather was beautiful. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, what a beautiful day out there. I mean, April 15th, you could not ask for really a better day. I mean, certainly it was one of the best. Remember, opening days, I think, weather-wise. I
think about the contrast to the weather on March the 31st, because that was the original opening day. It was just miserable, cold.
Yeah, it was like, 30 degrees or something like that, like 35 and cloudy and
if we
dingy.
were lucky, it was 30 degrees. I mean, geez, it was freezing that day.
Well, two Sundays ago, it was snowing outside. It was actually snowing. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, yesterday was 85 degrees. Today was pretty much right in the middle. And then I think by Monday we have 50 again. So you just never know. I mean, April, it's just everything. But the Mets today definitely lucked out. But for you, Mr. Morosco, talk about Tom Seaver, what he meant to you. Obviously, we spoke about this here on prior shows before. I get some of the guys in here and some of the thoughts around Major League Baseball. But, talk about what this day meant to you finally as the Mets finally did something that they probably should have did, like I was saying before, probably should have did the minute that Tom Seaver announced his retirement in 1987.
Yeah, they should have done it when they retired his number at least. I mean, it's a shame that he wasn't here to see it. I mean, his family was here, but, I blame the Wilpons definitely because – especially Fred Wilpon, because he really cared more about the Brooklyn Dodgers than the New York Mets. I don't care what anybody says. And it's ridiculous that Tom Seaver was not alive to see this. It really was. But I was lucky enough to see Seaver pitch at Shea Stadium about 5 times. The biggest game I saw Seaver pitch was back in 1983 when he came back. you think today's crowd was that was electric. Everybody was going wild, and that was a great day. He pitched against the Phillies. He won, and it was great to have him back. That was
Carlton the opening day pitcher for the Phillies?
Yes. Yep. Seaver against Carlton.
Magic.
And then I'll tell you, that was magic. I was sitting on the first base line. I was in the loge level, and I had such a great view. And I'm lucky. I got to see Seaver pitch 5 times. It was like watching an artist with his drop and drive pitching style, and his right knee brushing up against the pitcher's mound. He was just amazing. Tom Seaver is definitely the franchise.
No question about it. And I got to bring Chris in here. Chris, could you imagine if the Yankees had not honored any of their players? I mean, we could go down a whole list, but I mean, you think about it, and I'm listening to Mr. Morosky here talk about Tom Seaver so eloquently here, and I could never imagine the Yankees not doing that for that long list of great players. I could just never imagine the Yankees just doing that.
And you know what? I'm kind of jealous because I love the statue that they did for Tom Seaver, but I'm like, and I'm not making a joke here, but how many statues would they have to build outside of Yankee Stadium? Like trust me, I'm not joking, but how many? Like you would have to do Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle,
Whitey Ford, Rivera, Jeter.
You got to do, I guess,
Thurman
Jeter,
Munson.
Rivera.
I guess Thurman Munson. I guess. Would you do Thurman Munson?
Maybe given his story and what happened.
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm just thinking of like Hall of Famers, like the automatic Hall of Famer guys. You know, like
Mariano.
Yeah, Jeter. Like I wouldn't do it for Tino and maybe not Bernie or
Mattingly's another one you probably not do for Mattingly.
But it's like, where are you going to put them? Like it's just all the. But I am. I think what the Mets did today was absolutely amazing. It was something that should have been done years ago, like you said. But great job by the statue. Is just it's amazing.
Well, I mean, look, if you're gonna do a statue, I mean, certainly, I mean, you think about Met history. I mean, we talked about Yankee history just now for a second, right? And you think about even some Yankees like a Bernie Williams or a Don Mattingly. I guess Paul O'Neill would be another one that comes to mind, or Bobby Mercer, right? For the Mets, you'd probably give him the statue, considering the Met history, because after Seaver, I mean, it's kind of far and few between. I guess David Wright would be the next one. I mean, Piazza, but he played, 7 years as a Mets? But the point is, with the Yankees, I mean, we talked about guys right now that had a long career, Thurman Munson even, and you look at it and say, maybe I would do a statue, but I probably wouldn't. But for the Mets, you definitely do it. And for you, Mr. Morosco, on the field for the Mets, I mean, certainly Chris Bassett did his Tom Seaver impersonation here today, and he looks pretty good. And he certainly looks like he could be somebody here that's right there in the rotation. And certainly, I can't quite say fills the void of Jacob deGrom, but certainly gives the Mets a nice little punch there under Max Scherzer.
Yeah, like I said, that was a great pickup. And throughout the season, you're going to see how much of a great pickup it was getting Bassett. I'll tell you, he two starts. He looked great in both starts. I know it's only the beginning of the year, and if you look at Twitter, I mean, some of these Met fans are really going crazy. Like, World Series is next. Bring on the World Series.
It's funny to say that because I'm listening to the fan a couple of nights ago, and this is for the Yankees and the Mets, so this is for Chris as well, and you would think that both these teams were going to lose 90 games. You would think that, because the Yankees lost a couple games to the Blue Jays, and the Mets, as Brad had pointed out a little while ago, had blown the 4-0 lead against the Phillies. I don't know about this team. They didn't address the bullpen, and Showalter, he's not making the right moves, and all of a sudden, like you said, Mr. Morosco, all of a sudden now the Mets are in the World Series, and the Yankees, it's all is fine as well because they got split the Blue Jays. I mean, it's just amazing, with baseball, unlike any other sport, how you're so reactionary.
I know, and you know what? The Mets could really be undefeated this year. Really, the game they lost in Washington and Philadelphia, they should have won both those games, so they really could technically be, undefeated. But let's remember, the Mets were in first place most of last season, and we know what happens. The Braves won the World Series, so we have to be careful. By the way, Brute Force, I like your hat. It doesn't look like it came from Walmart. So, But
Thank you.
the Braves won the World Series last year. The Mets were in first place for most of the year, and then all of a sudden, boom. So you know what? You got to watch out. It's too early. It's only April.
Listen, I mean, you don't crown World Series winners in April. I mean, there's teams. I always bring up the example on the show for everybody here. In 2002, the Cleveland Indians started the season 11-1, right? The Cleveland Indians that season finished 74-88. I mean, last year Kansas City was 16-8, and they were nowhere near making the postseason. There's teams that are filled with great starts, but it doesn't mean anything. What it really means is how you end up at the end of the day in September and October. And John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, Bassett is a stud. They should hit up the A's for Blackburn or Montes. Anybody want to jump in there and give a thought on that? Anybody here?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, with the Mets have had already had their injuries in the rotation. We know DeGrom's not going to be back for a while. Taijuan Walker's at the IL. So, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea, but, I think they definitely are okay right now with running with what they got. Looks like we'll give David Peterson the opportunity to get the start on Sunday. Tyler McGill has been terrific through his first couple of starts. So I think right now they're happy with running with what they got, and then, figure out what the long-term projection looks for the Met rotation. One thing I will say, and one thing I did a comparison to, and I just took the first 8 games of last year, the first 8 games of this year. Last year they were 5-3 through their first 8, but they had only scored 30 runs. This year they're 6-2, having scored 44 runs, and only the Cleveland Guardians have scored more runs. So you see, one of the issues with last year was it looked like a lot of smoke and mirrors. They weren't scoring runs. They were getting terrific pitching in the first.
Oh, they had a lot of luck last year. They had a lot of luck. We spoke about that.
They had a lot of luck. They were winning a ton of one-run games in the first half of the season, and it was smoke and mirrors. They weren't really that good. They couldn't hit. They couldn't get the big hit when it mattered. They look like a much more confident bunch at the plate, and that's thanks to additions like Marte and Canna, and Escobar and all of them. But at the same time, yes, it's early in the season. We'll see what happens going forward. But the Mets are getting all around good play right now.
Listen,
and at no point last year did they get all around great play.
No, there was really maybe I'd say one stretch for a week with the lineup throughout the whole season, maybe a week in July. Other than that, there really wasn't. Yeah. I mean, so listen, the old adage is you don't really start for any team. You don't really start looking at the standings until Memorial Day. That's when it's like, okay, now I got to look at this. Like even now, right, I'm reading the paper, right, and I look at the box scores and it like the RBIs and the hits and all that. It doesn't really sink in until like the middle of May. And Anthony Finkel has a serious question here, and he says, when are we doing a Sportswire radio night out at Duffy's? Well, Anthony Finkel, you don't live that far really from Duffy's. I mean, you're in Ditmas Park. I mean, so for you to drive to Duffy's, it really wouldn't take you very long. So, I mean, that's really up for you to say, hey, I want to come out. I mean, you're all over the place. I mean, so, I mean, it's really up to you. I mean, if you want to come out, I mean, some of the other guys I'm sure will come out and, we'll make that happen. And I'm sure the Brew Force, Brad Weiss, will definitely be picking up the tab, I'm sure. I just walked
God. I'll address that later. I can't do that right now.
But obviously, Anthony Finkel, I'm probably there at some point in the next week. So, I mean, if you want to definitely, hit me up, I mean, you know me, and, we'll make that happen. I mean, your buddy Steve Saperstein and I were there. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I think he graced his presence. And John Gonzalez says the Brew Force is paying. I'm in.
Yeah.
I mean, walks right into that there. I mean, I guess going back,
he'll take his money.
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, they'll certainly do that. It was funny. I went there. I think it was I went there actually yesterday, and I think there was I went with somebody that was, I guess, sort of important in the community. I don't want to reveal the person's name for their anonymity, and I think more people knew me than that person. So that just says how frequent I go to the place. Maybe it doesn't speak so much about me or that person, but going back to our regularly scheduled conversation here about, I guess, some of the stuff here with the New York Mets, and John Gonzalez says the Brute has mad cash. I don't know about that. I mean, but we'll let the Brute Force decide what's in his bank account for another time and another discussion. But I mean, for you, Brad, when it comes to some of these things here with the Mets, I mean, obviously you got off to a great start, and I want to get Chris in here and get some of the Yankees' perspective and some other thoughts around the league for our Tobacco Road sports radio crowd, especially because we have a national audience there. So I want to move on a little bit in terms of some national stories. I mean, for you, Brad, anything else you see about this Met team that makes you maybe more optimistic, or what you're looking for going to tomorrow's game at 1:00?
Yeah, well, obviously, we talked about the lineup already. I spoke about, the guys who have had a big impact so far. Obviously, Lindor, like I said, when he plays at this level, he's a big difference maker. But like Rob Maraska said, we were in first place. We had a great record last year, and we fell apart. It's going to be about consistency with the Mets. Can they be consistent? Can they win more series? Can they be consistent? Because like we said at the beginning, they always start hot in April and March and a little bit into May. But then when late May and June hits, it normally becomes a little bit scary hours for the Mets. So it's going to have to be a consistent appearance from the Mets all season long. But I will say, I'll give some credit to some guys maybe we don't talk about enough. I like the way Drew Smith looked today. I think that's a guy who's been injured, who we've been really excited about in the past years for our bullpen. And I think part of the reason why they traded Miguel Castro was for their confidence in Drew Smith, and he's definitely looked good so far. So I want to give him a shout out. As well as guys like Chasen Shreve we brought back. I think that's another big piece, a lefty, because Joely Rodriguez has been absolutely horrendous so far. We're going to have to get a little bit more from him. But, the bullpen, the starting rotation, obviously, you talk about McGill, who got one of the loudest ovations of all the players today, besides Scherzer and DeGrom. McGill got a big hit, so that fans definitely excited about him. Yep. David Peterson should be starting on Sunday. Carrasco had a good start. I'll be seeing him tomorrow. I think that'll be a big start for Carrasco as well. But I will say one thing, mostly everything's going well. I'll give you a player I'm concerned about, though, early in the season, if there's one player so far, and that's James McCann. And I'm going to say, his McCannon, all right, well, he had a great arm today. He had a great stolen base. He threw a batter out today. But his biggest accomplishment so far this season hitting was actually hitting a foul ball, hitting the third base coach, and then hitting the catcher in the head at the same time today. That might be his best accomplishment so far, hitting the baseball. So we need more from James McCann from the hitting standpoint.
You have a feeling that contract, I know it's not like a long-term contract, but that's just going to be an albatross for the Mets. You get the feeling that it's never going to really.
And again, I could be picky because he is the ninth man in the lineup. He is splitting time with Nito, but this is a guy, listen, we're talking about a team that we want to have success in the playoffs and be, a World Series contender potentially. If James McCann can't get his act together, that's not going to be good for the Mets. He needs to be a consistent bat in that lineup. That's why we gave him that money, and that's why he is the catcher of the New York Mets. So that's a guy who I'm going to be looking for to see if he could pick it up, because most of the rest of the lineup is producing. But it seems like every time we get to him, it's almost like it's an automatic out.
Yeah, no question. No question about that. And conversely, Chris, I want to go over to the Yankees because I'm listening to talk radio throughout the week, and I'm listening to the overnight. I'm sure you're going to speak about it undoubtedly on the Talking Rivals show, which we'll hear probably, I guess, Monday on Sportswire Radio. Usually we get the show. And the two players, and I think you know where I'm going with this, is Isaiah Khalifa. I mean, I have just heard everybody speak about him. People say he can't hit, he can't field, he can't do this, he can't do that. And obviously, catcher Kyle Higashioka is another one here. I mean, what does he have? 2 hits so far in the season or something like that? I mean, it's just, unfortunately, that's just the way it goes here. But, I mean, those are the two players I just heard left and right throughout the overnight shows, and callers called left and right here. I mean, Chris, I know it's early, but, I mean, at least with kind of Khalifa, more so than Higashioka, I mean, this was not what you hoped for.
No, not at all. I'm going to give IKF a little bit of a break, right? He's playing shortstop. I get it. And I just heard in the interview today, he admitted, he goes, I'm putting way too much pressure on myself. like this guy was a Yankee fan growing up, and this is only his first couple of seasons anyway. I seen Didi do the same thing. I know Didi was replacing Jeter, a lot more pressure going on there, so I get it. But he did go through a couple of weeks, even about a month of being booed every night, making errors and not hitting well and everything. So I could see that being a problem with IKF as well. And you got to remember too. And I think I was talking to Patrick about this on the show. I think with the Yankees, right, for years it was center field for the Yankees, right, was that big position. And Rob would definitely know this too. Like playing center field, right, was for the Yankees was big. Joe D, Mickey Mantle, and then years later it was Bernie Williams. And now I think it's moved to shortstop, right? Because I think Jeter's shadow looms so large right now over shortstop. For everything he's done, as a player and everything. I think shortstop's the new, I don't know what's the right word. The pressure position for the Yankees right now. It's not center field anymore. I think it's
the dark cloud. You want to say maybe the dark cloud? You want to say
not dark cloud, but it's like the
elephant in the room.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's going to be so much pressure for a guy to play shortstop now because they're always going to be compared to Jeter. Like what he did. You're never going to match him, obviously, but fans and everybody else are going to say, "Oh, well, Jeter is, he's not Jeter. He's not this. He's not that," which I think is unfair. Saying all that, IKF still has to just play his game. Basically just play within what he could do. He's not going to hit 330 and hit 20 home runs. That's just not his type of player, right? He's going to hit 280, maybe 290.
Yeah, probably like 10 home runs if we're lucky, like 60 RBI,
That's all. He's not going to be a superstar, and just give us at least a good glove at shortstop. And right now, maybe he's feeling the pressure, at catcher. All catchers, and this, all catchers have to do is call a good game and be good defensively behind the plate. That's all you got to do. If you hit 200, all right, you give us 10, 15 home runs, we'll take that. But if he's just good defensively and calls a good game and the pitchers like throwing to him, that's a plus over what we've had. So I'm more worried about IKF than I am the catching. But with IKF, I think it's, after a month, this is the way I look at it. After a month, when the rosters get trimmed again
to 26,
right? I think that's when they might assess. If he's still not, if he's still making errors and if he's still not hitting, then I think there's going to be a problem because they got the big shortstops coming up that are going to start if they're hot, if they're hitting in short, down in AAA. If Pazak is hitting, it's going to be hard to not be able to bring him up after a month. If he's hitting 350 by the end of the month, how are you going to hold this kid back?
Yeah, no, the pressure will definitely be.
So we'll see after a month. I think you got to give him a couple of weeks. Let's see if he settles in.
I kind of agree. I always, like I said, going back to my line with the box scores, I don't really start.
It's only the first week.
Yeah, I don't digest it. I don't digest it really until really like the first week in May. If he's hitting whatever he's hitting now at that, I say, yeah, okay. And I'll get to a couple of comments here. And John Gonzalez says, I think kind of Khalifa didn't get any of Cousin Ralph's genes. Yeah, hard, John. It's almost kind of, I don't want to quite say it's Hank Aaron and Tommy Aaron, but I guess power-wise, you could make that comparison. Anthony Finkel had chimed in and says, anybody going to the Cyclones game tomorrow? I think it's supposed to rain, though, in the second half of the day, Anthony Finkel. So it might be open bar and all you can drink with your tickets, but if it's going to rain, I mean, I'm not going to sit outside in Coney Island, especially out there. But I will say I might be able to get Ferry Hawks tickets down the road if you're interested in that. If it does rain, if you want, like I said, you did suggest Duffy, so you could certainly message me about that if you're interested in that tomorrow. I will probably be there at some point, possibly. So if you'd like to meet up, that's fine. And those are some of the things there. And I want to move on, obviously, to some other stories in Major League Baseball because I have Tobacco Road Sports Radio, and I could talk Mets and Yankees all day, but there are other listeners to that station that might like to hear some other teams. So I'll go to Rob Maraska, and I'll work my way across the room here. And what are some stories you're watching right now, Rob Maraska, when it comes to the rest of Major League Baseball?
Okay, here's one. Clayton Kershaw getting taken out of a perfect game, okay, by Dave Roberts. What do you think about that? I think, all right, if it was a no-hitter, that would be one thing because he's already pitched a no-hitter. But this is a perfect game, okay? It's a perfect game. How many times is he going to get that close to pitching a perfect game? And I think that he should have went out to him in the 7th inning and said, listen, I'm thinking about taking you out of the game. Do you want to come out or do you want to go for it? And I would have left it up to the pitcher. I don't care about his past injuries. I don't care about any of that stuff. This is baseball perfection. And I know damn well Tom Seaver would have never came out of a game like that. He would have fought. Bob Gibson would have never came out of a game like that. No way in hell you getting those guys out. So I don't know. That, to me, I wouldn't want to get taken out of that game. I don't care. It's the beginning of the year. I don't care. When is that ever going to happen again?
I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm going to get all the guys' perspectives on it for sure, undoubtedly. But I want to go to the brute force Brad Weiss first on this because Brad Weiss most recently played. He was a very good college basketball player and obviously wasn't Clayton Kershaw, but he had a lot of success. And obviously we covered his career here at length. And he did have a season where he had some big, big moments. And you can look it up on the now St. Joseph's New York Men's Basketball Index for the 2018-19 season. If you don't believe it, you can look at the box scores. But the brute force, you were a very good player. You've had some very, very big games throughout your career. And walk me through what would go in your mindset if, let's say, Dave Roberts made the move, or let's say if you're in that spot. Now, I know you played. You had some big, big moments. You had games where, we had 18 points and 5 block shots and 12 rebounds. And that's not a perfect game, but it's obviously as good a game as you could play for the kind of player that you played. You were one of the better players in the Skyline Conference there in that season. So walk me through from an individual perspective. Leave aside the team stuff, and I'll get to Chris and Justin in a second here. But from your vantage point, because you just recently played, you were a very good player when you were in that lineup in that 2018-19 season. Walk me through your thoughts on that, and how would you react? And if it was you, would you have wanted to have been taken out in that situation?
Yeah, what a complex question for sure, but I'll definitely give my insight on this. So I'll first start from a basketball.
And I guess that would mean the complex internet Wi-Fi capabilities there. We'll come back to the brute force. He'll get kicked off, and we'll bring him back on the stream. So let's go to Chris here. Obviously, Clayton Kershaw. Obviously, again, we've walked through it. I mean, what do you think? I mean, if you're in that shoes, if you're the manager, I mean, I know everybody's on pitch counts and everybody's focused on these different things, but how do you feel about that whole situation?
I think from a fan's point of view, I totally agree with what Rob is saying. So from a fan, yeah, I wanted to see him go for it, but I understand why he was taken out, right? You got to look at it this way. His highest pitch total so far in the spring was 56 pitches. Okay. It was a shortened spring training. This was basically his, next to last spring training start, if you want to look at it that way.
Okay.
So I think he was on a 75 pitch limit for that game. So, and, coming off the injury that he had last season with the shoulder or whatever he had, you got to add that into it. Plus it was cold too. I think it was like 35, 40 degrees in Minnesota. And this is only, we're talking about the first week of the season. This is a team going for the World Series. This is not a team, that's, has no World Series aspirations. This is a team that's going for the World Series. They need this guy. And we seen it last year that they needed Kershaw. So I understand it from a team point of view, why you wouldn't let him go. It makes a lot of sense. And especially in this day and age where the counting pitches, 30, 40 years ago, they weren't. Yeah, go ahead. What are you, crazy? Go out.
I think even like 20. I think even 20, when I think back to Randy Johnson and Bert Schilling, and even to Kevin Brown, like I think even like that era, tail end of Roger Clemens, you could throw a few other examples.
I wonder if it would, let's say, clean slate. Let's say he didn't have injury. He didn't have the injury last year. It wasn't a shortened spring training. This was his first start in the regular season. I think they would have let him go. But we got to add all the other. Unfortunately, you have to add the age, the injury, the shortened spring training, the weather. You got to add all that in because
The weather I hadn't thought about because Minnesota. I mean,
got to add it all in.
Minnesota is like Canada. It's winter till like what, June
like
1st? I
Canada.
mean, seriously, in Minnesota, it's like June 1st. It still could like snow and be 20
Right.
degrees. So,
Why they didn't put a dome up in Minnesota? It made no sense.
Yeah, I know. I mean, totally there. I
Who's
mean,
wanting the money for it?
Probably, yeah.
those are very good points there. And I want to go back to the Brute Force Brad White because I know we got cut off, so I'm not going to re-answer the question. But obviously, again, you were a player. You obviously had some great moments. You had a lot of success. And walk me through what would be your reaction to Dave Roberts taking you out. If you were a Clayton Kershaw, would you want to go back out there and continue that? So walk me through all that.
Yeah, so of course, ironically, I was about to talk glowingly about myself for a second. That's when it cut me off. So what I was going to say was that I was going to take it from a basketball standpoint first because I've had near perfect games in my career where the basket feels large, like the ball's going in every single time. I'm blocking every shot, making every play, and and coaches, when I'm a player on that court. And trust me, I have both sides of this now because as a player, hell no, I don't want to come off the court. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm playing great. How the heck are you going to take me off the court? But the difference in basketball is this, and I know this as a coach because, you go out there and you give a great 6 minutes or so. A coach might want to take you out for 30 seconds to a minute just to get you a break and put you right back in. In basketball, that happens where, you just take that 30 seconds, you go back in, you still play at a high level. Where baseball, listen, you have an inning, then you come out, you take a break, and you have another inning. And in this case, when it comes to a player's perspective in baseball, I got to agree with Rob Moroska. I don't give a damn what time of season it is. I don't care how short spring training was. I don't care about the lockout. Right? I'm a player. I'm throwing a perfect game. I have a chance to do something that not many guys do. When's the last time we saw a perfect game? Like 2012, I think it was. And this is an all-time great pitcher doing it at an advanced age. Now, everybody's going to say, and this is where modern-day baseball this is where it kills me. Because everyone's going to say, oh, well, we got to protect the player and we got to make sure, he can throw a blank amount of innings by the end of the season. We got to be safe. Who gives a damn about safety at this point in the beginning of the season when you have a perfect game? He has a chance to write history. He has a chance to do something. And as a player, you can't stand that when a coach takes you out. But as a coach, it's hard because you want to blame Dave Roberts for it. Well, it's really more than Dave Roberts. It's the organization. The organization comes down and says, listen, we need Clayton Kershaw. You got to be smart. You can't pitch him this amount. We're going to keep him to this certain amount, and no matter what he does, we're going to try to get him through a season. But as a player, head to hell with that. I mean, I just want to go out there and pitch. I want to throw a perfect game. I want to celebrate with my teammates. I want to be in the history books. All of that. I want that as a player. But as a coach, it's hard because when you're controlled kind of by your organization, it doesn't become just your decision. It's your decision, and it's also, right, more importantly, the people who are paying Clayton Kershaw's decision, which is the owner and the organization. And that's where it gets very complex, like I said. And in the end, as a coach at my level, right, if I saw a kid with a perfect game, no doubt I'm letting him pitch. But at the major league level where players are getting paid to play and they have a long season of 162 games and you have an advanced pitcher like Clayton Kershaw, I guess the organization is going to go with safety first. But you're asking me as a coach or as a player? Hell no. He's pitching and he's writing history. That's what I want.
And a couple of comments in here, and John Gonzalez, before I get to Justin, John Gonzalez says the Dodgers have an all-star team, but the Padres aren't that far behind. They might have the best 1 through 5 pitching rotation.
Maybe.
John, they absolutely do. We'll see, though, if it translates this season. John Gonzalez says this is not 1970. Different era pitchers are on a pitch count. It is what it is no matter what. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the name of the game. And those are some fair points. Well done there, John. And for you, Justin, you were certainly very vocal about it in our Sportswire radio group on Twitter. And give me your thoughts for those who are listening to this and watching this here about the whole Clayton Kershaw situation and how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as a fan, like Chris said, I was rooting for Kershaw to stay in and Kershaw to, get the job done and finish it off. But The more we got away from the game, the more time that passed. You listen to what Clayton Kershaw said in the post game. The more you start to really analyze it a little bit more. And as somebody who is a former baseball player, and baseball being the only sport that I played, there is no more important thing than arm care, and the ramp up to start a season is real. And your arm is just not conditioned to throw 100 pitches early in the season. And again, like Chris said, you factor in the weather. It was cold as hell, and this is a Los Angeles based team playing a rare interleague matchup in Minnesota. The Dodgers don't play a lot of cold weather games. Maybe the one-off chance where they, when they're in Denver early on, or if they come to New York early in the season, play the Mets. But other than that, you're not getting a lot of cold weather, so that's a factor. The late spring training is also a factor, and like Chris said, this team is built to win a World Series, and they're not going to win a World Series without Clayton Kershaw. Their 4 and 5 in their rotation this year is Andrew Heaney and Tony Gonsolin. They don't have the pitching depth that they have had in years past, and that's really going to rear its ugly head if one of Julio Urias, Walker Buehler, or Clayton Kershaw goes down. Look, as much as it would have been awesome to see, and listening, if Kershaw had sounded upset, maybe I'd feel a little bit differently about this. But he even said in the last couple of innings, he didn't have his secondary stuff. He was losing it. He felt himself wearing down, and that's just part of the ramp up for a baseball season. It takes a good 6 to 8 weeks before you're fully lucid to have a full workload, and it's not a joke. And right to John Gonzalez's point about this is not 1970, it's also a different era in the fact that these players are true assets at this point. Players weren't viewed as true assets back then, and they would ride you as much as possible. I mean, why do you think Sandy Koufax retired at the age of 30? Because his arm was worn down. Now, he was out there pitching every 3-4 days because obviously there was less pitchers in the rotation, made more starts this season, threw a ton more innings. Now that these players are paid more, they're viewed as long-term financial assets. And so what would the Dodgers rather have? Clayton Kershaw throws a perfect game and then goes and tears his UCL 2 starts later, and the Dodgers miss the playoffs, or he comes out of this game, he's healthy for the full year, and the Dodgers win the 2022
We can go famously Johan Santana right after he threw the only hitter in my
He was
history.
never the same. That was the
what do you have, like 4 starts the rest of his career after that?
Yeah, and he threw 134 pitches that day. Now Kershaw wouldn't have gone that high, and Santana was coming off major shoulder surgery the year before that. But I mean, these pitchers and all these players are viewed as major assets. That's why guys get more days off, more maintenance days. That's why pitchers, if they need an extra day of rest, they'll get that extra day of rest, because it's a 162 game season. It's played over about 180 days. You need as many healthy bodies as possible, because remember, it's going to take 7, 8, 9, 10 different starters throughout the year, and you need to maintain as much health as possible. And that's where I step back from the situation and say they did the right thing. Now, after the 6th inning, Roberts went up to Kershaw. He said, "What do you want to do here?" He said, "I want the 7th." He went to 7th. He got up to 80 pitches. And if he said he was tiring, he was tiring. I just don't know how you could argue against that.
And thanks to the crack staff for giving us the stat here. Johan Santana, after the aforementioned no-hitter against the St. Louis Cardinals, actually only threw 10 more starts the rest of his career. His ERA went from 2.38 to 4.85. So that does show you there. I mean, that maybe there is something to that. It is Clayton Kershaw, right? So you definitely want to handle him delicately. Certainly his career, where he is in the miles. And I guess those are some fair points. And I think that's a good topic. I mean, for anybody else here, is there anything else, Major League Baseball, any other stories for anybody here that anybody's watching?
It's early, but you know what? I love watching these new players, the younger players coming up. The Julio Rodriguez in Seattle.
And I've got one for I've got one for you guys here after you finish that point. So go ahead.
Bobby Witt in
Bobby Witt Jr., Kansas City.
Yep.
Torkelson with Detroit, and the other guy, not that he's a young kid, but Sei Suzuki on the Cubs.
Yep.
He's really good too the first week. I mean, it's only the first week, but you know what? There's such a great influx of young players coming up in Major League Baseball right now that we haven't seen this much all at once, you know, and there's more coming, obviously. But yeah, I think it's almost like a changing of the guard, you know, because we're seeing Pujols, the guys on St. Louis retire, you know, Pujols, Wainwright.
Well, Pujols is my next question. That's actually what I have.
Can he get to 7? Can he get to 7?
Yep, that's my question. He hit 680, so I'm going to ask.
I hope so.
So what does everybody think? Does Albert Pujols wind up getting to 700 home runs before he retires, undoubtedly after the season? Anybody have a thought of that?
20 more?
Yep.
20 exactly.
Woo! It's going to be close. I'll say that. As long as he stays healthy, he's got to stay healthy. I think he'll get it if he stays healthy. He'll get enough at bats.
I mean, he's only going to be DHing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say yes because I want to see it, but right. I don't think he gets there. Now, if he hits, let's say, 11 or 12 prior to the All-Star break, now he'd be, if he's got 12 home runs, he'd be 9 away because he's won already this year, so it'd be another 11 home runs. They might start putting him in the lineup every day. In the second half of the season. There's I don't think there's anything that's hurting them putting in the lineup as a DH. Obviously, every now and again, he may spell Paul Goldschmidt at first base, but Paul Goldschmidt's not a guy who takes many days off. So, right. He'd be at the DH spot. So I'll say yes because I want to see it.
All right, that's fair. I mean, for the rest of everybody here, Mr. Morosky, let me give your thoughts on Albert Pujols.
I want to see it, definitely. I don't know. I think he'd just have to DH, and he'd have to – I don't know how he would feel about, rest, how much rest he would need. But 20 for him might be too much. But like Justin said, I would love to see it. So I'm going to say, yes, it could be done, but he can't get injured. I mean, that's it. He has to be healthy all year or it won't happen.
Last year, he had 296 at-bats and had 17 home runs. So if you do the law of logic, he's probably got to get about close to 400 at-bats, maybe 350 if he's lucky. Yep. I'll get to Brad, but I'll go with Chris. Did you think Albert gets 700? He's got 680 right now. What do you think? You think he gets there?
I think so. I like I said, as long as he can stay healthy, I mean, that's definitely going to be a big issue. But I think playing DH is going to help him. That'll kind of keep his legs a little fresher. I don't think he's going to play first base much, but just like you guys, I definitely want to see it. That's the reason why I'm saying it. I wouldn't bet on it. I'd probably bet on the under if I had to. But yeah, I hope he gets it, man. It'd be kind of cool to see him get 700. He's going to the Hall of Fame no matter what, anyway. But it'd be cool to see it. It'd be a nice story this year. For sure, especially with them guys all retiring together, and be really good.
There's his numbers. I mean, before I get to Brad, I mean, thanks to the crack staff for pulling it up here. I mean, these are some really ridiculous numbers, and clearly it's the longevity and just an incredible start he had in St. Louis. I mean, really those first 10 or 11 years of his career. I mean, certainly he had some okay years with the Angels, but certainly the batting average dropped off immensely. But I mean, look at it. He had 3,305 hits, 1,874 runs, 672 doubles. We'll give him a pass on the 16 career triples only, but 680 home runs, 2,151 stolen bases, got 116 steals, 1,346 walks. I think the most impressive stat, only struck out 1,349 times. Really didn't strike out much. I mean, look at the numbers here.
For a modern era player, his strikeouts have definitely been
very little.
lower than the league average, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he never struck out 100 times in his career, which to me is really,
Amazing.
really impressive.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's just incredible eye. 375 OBP, 544 slugging, 919 OPS, and 6,049 total bases here. 413 double plays. Did ground into a lot of double plays.
It's the most in history.
Yeah, well, he certainly did that. Obviously, the shift will do that also for you. But the brute force, I mean, what do you think, Albert Polos? I saw your hands jump up here when I brought it up. I think it's obviously everybody always, when you have a player of this magnitude and you have a stat, and it doesn't happen too often you have a stat like this. And I almost, in a lot of ways, I guess equate Albert Pujols to like the Karl Malone of Major League Baseball. If you think about their careers and their consistency, maybe different personalities. Certainly, Albert Pujols does have the World Championship to his resume, whereas Karl Malone didn't. But very similar in terms of their consistency. But I mean, for you, the brute force, does Albert Pujols find a way and get to 700 home runs before he undoubtedly retires after this season?
So I'm going to say this, Tom. I'm going to say this. So
Sure.
Just like everybody else, I'm going to say that obviously I want it to happen for Albert Pujols. I really do, but I'm going to be the Debbie Downer in the group. I'm going to say no. I don't think it happens. I just don't think Albert Pujols plays enough games. And I actually, unfortunately, I don't know if he'll be healthy enough to make it happen, unfortunately. So, again, I don't want to, again, I hate being the Debbie Downer, but I am going to be. And, to make people feel better if you're an Albert Pujols fan, I've had a lot of predictions go wrong, so this could just be another one that gets added to the list. So, hopefully, just because I said that, hopefully that helps our Pujols. But that's not the reason why I put my hands up in the air, Tom Bryce. But do me a favor, Tom Bryce. Put John Gonzalez's last comment back on the screen, please. Put it back on the screen.
Sure,
all right.
Sure.
You guys all know why I did it, okay? Listen, I'm ready.
You got all worked up.
I'm ready to announce, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm no longer going to call John Gonzalez John Gonzalez. Okay, John Gonzalez is going to be Detroit's #1 reporter. Okay, at this point, all right, he should be the mayor of Detroit.
Well, do you remember, Brad? Do you remember when we used to call ourselves? And Rob was on it. Billy McInerney would have been here. He could have vouched for it. We used to call ourselves New York's #1 sports show.
Yeah, well,
John Gonzalez needs to
get his own show and call it Detroit's #1 sports show, because at this point he's the top analyst in Detroit. He should be the mayor. They should name the airport after him. I mean, he loves Detroit more than anyone I've ever seen. So and every week he never fails to mention Detroit in some sort of way. So I just had to make sure that was brought up, John Gonzalez. You might as well tell me how you feel about your 4-4 Detroit Tigers. So you just love Detroit. You just love Detroit.
Well, he's got a response to that, but he makes up a valid point, which I kind of overglanced here. And he says, how about Pujols leaving his wife after her brain surgery? Yeah, I mean, that's I hate to be the TMC, but I mean, certainly if I had a wife, I mean, I certainly I don't know if I leave her after brain surgery. I mean, you might need brain surgery to kind of have the how can I put it, almost the cold heart, I guess you might want to say, to leave your wife after that. But I'm not in the bedroom and I'm not wearing the pants in that relationship, so I'm going to plead the fifth on that. I'm sure everybody else would probably feel the same, so I'll leave that there. And John Gonzalez does have a much more pleasant comment. Just call me Mr. Motor City. I mean, actually, I got a better one. I mean, anybody remember Home Improvement with Tool Time with Tim? I mean, at this point, maybe John Gonzalez should be Tool Time with John Gonzalez. Maybe that's just the way it goes. I mean,
have a segment on the show every Friday night.
We could. I mean, and listen, Pamela Anderson, her career started at Home Improvement, and the woman they had replaced her, she wasn't too bad either. Her name's slipping my mind here, but I have to say, so if we can pull that off, I mean, certainly those are things I wouldn't be opposed. So, John Gonzalez, if you want a Detroit segment and a Tool Time-like segment, if you can get a couple of women that look like Pamela Anderson, and we'll look up the other one that was on Home Improvement afterwards, by all means, we'll definitely be happy to do that here for you, to say the least. But Mr. Maraska, I want to give you some closing thoughts here. Obviously, we spend a lot of time on baseball, and I'm happy to have you here. Glad you're doing well. Glad you're on the camera with us. Glad you figured it out here. Obviously, a very, very important day for you, a very happy day for you, certainly. I think for most Met fans as a whole, and even for baseball fans. Certainly, obviously, we started out with the sad news of Mike Bossy, but I think on a happy note, which we always try to do here on Sportswire Radio, we have a positive here in the fact that Tom Seaver was finally recognized, and his family and Mets fans like yourself who've been undoubtedly longtime Met fans were able to relish and cherish in that moment, were certainly able to have a great day like they did today. And I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug and share? And I can't thank you enough, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. This morning I was in touch with Ed Hearn, who was the 1986 world champion Mets backup catcher for Gary Carter. You interviewed him. He's a friend of the show.
Yes, interesting guy. Yep.
Yeah, and he's a nice guy. And also, he was traded the next year for David Cohn. But seriously, for the second time in his life, he's very close to kidney failure, and he's in search of a living kidney donor. So he just wanted, me to mention that he is in search of a living kidney donor. He's a great guy. He's been helping people his whole life, and he just needs our help and prayer. So, say a prayer for him. He's a great guy, and I just wanted to get that out there.
No, we'll definitely be happy to share prayers for Ed Hearn, and obviously somebody I know very well, Heather Quinlan, actually knows Ed Hearn, and certainly I did have the opportunity to speak with Ed Hearn. Ed Hearn is certainly an interesting conversation I had with him. Obviously, I'm trying to put it in the nicest words about Ed Hearn, but obviously, most importantly, want to give my prayers more than anything else, and I'm sure everybody else. Again, Ed Hearn had a very hard-lucked career when it came to his professional baseball career, but certainly he's much more known for sort of his heart and courage off the field. So we definitely want to give our thoughts and certainly prayers, especially with Easter coming here and Good Friday and Holy Thursday and Palm Sunday that passed here, obviously Passover for those in the Jewish community. So I certainly want to make sure with the holidays and the religious holidays that we give a thoughts and well wishes to ex-Mets and Kansas City Royals catcher Ed Hearn. Again, Ed Hearn, obviously very, very well known. And John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, wasn't Ed Hearn traded for David Cohn? Yes, Rob Maraska had mentioned that as well. And you can follow Rob Maraska on Twitter at @rmaraska. So keep up with all the great things. He's always tweeting stuff about baseball, and he's a part of the team, longest tenured analyst. And happy Easter to you and the family, Mr. Maraska. Happy to have you here on the screen with us. Looking forward to each and every Friday with you. And obviously, we definitely look back in Mets history with Ed Hearn and also certainly Tom Seaver as well. And we certainly keep our thoughts and prayers, certainly with the family of Ed Hearn. And happy Easter, my friend, and we'll speak with you next week.
Happy Easter, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
And
Take care.
And that was Rob Maraska here, our longest tenured analyst, speaking. And certainly we do extend our wishes and thoughts to Ed Hearn, of course, had a very, very hard luck life and certainly career here in the major leagues as we're speaking all things related to the world of sports and much, much more. And obviously with some of my guys here like the Brute Force Brad Weiss and Chris Pazak and Justin Gianelli, I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager here at Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And I do want to address a John Gonzalez comment. I'm going to address one here because he says, Tom, if I can get a few women that look like Pamela Anderson, I wouldn't be here on a Friday night. Well, hard, John Gonzalez, because you are here on a Friday night, and you haven't at the moment, don't have any women that look like Pamela Anderson. And for your information, Mr. Gonzalez, Pamela Anderson is single. So, I mean, certainly, you could certainly try to help us out here on Sportswire Radio, because I'm sure Miss Anderson has some friends as well. So if you do want that segment, I would certainly try to work on that. So certainly, Mr. Gonzalez, obviously, that's something that you might want to work on to get that segment. But obviously, we'll certainly see what happens here as we're speaking all things related to the world of sports. And I'm sure that John will give us a response or two. And very quickly, because I want to get to basketball and I want to get to playoff predictions and the play-in games, but I want to go to the NFL draft because I want to start preparing for that because obviously the liftoff Jets guys have been speaking about it, obviously Sharman and Chris, and I want to get the gang in here for a few because everybody loves hearing football, especially for Northeast Streaming Sports and our new Massachusetts Pirates fans that are going to be joining us certainly on Tuesday, and Tobacco Road Sports Ready with the draft coming here. And we're all pretty much, I guess, Jets fans to say the least here. I mean, what are we expecting come in 2 weeks from now for the draft? I'll go with the brute force first and work my way around the room. What are you expecting here for the draft, Brad?
You know what's crazy, Tom? You want to talk about what we're expecting. I don't know what to expect, to be quite honest with you. And that's, pretty valid right now. Listen, looking at like multiple mock drafts and obviously, the needs of the team, it could go many different ways based on how the top teams draft and what they decide to go with. I mean, you've seen, the boards change constantly where, I see quarterbacks moving up in the draft. I see, certain names in the wide receiver bracket moving up. And you're not sure where everybody's going to land and what teams are going to do what. So, honestly, when it comes to our New York Jets, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see, like I said, what the top teams do before the Jets and whether the Jets, decide to stay at their pick. I do assume that they do, but I'm really not sure who they're going to get in the draft ultimately because, again, there's so many moving parts. Teams are, there's some teams like Alfred mentioned, John Gonzalez, Detroit Lions, who we kind of have no clue what they're going to do. So, quite frankly, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the NFL draft. But for the Jets, I think, like I said, they've already had a very good offseason. I think whatever they do add, I think they're going to do it in a diligent way. I think we could trust Joe Douglas. I think they did a nice job drafting last year. I think that they're going to just find some pieces that'll help for sure. I wouldn't go against with the first pick just taking the best overall talent. But, again, you have to know what you need as well. So it's going to be interesting. But, again, to point your finger at who they're going to draft right now is very hard because you have to really see what the other teams do in front of them.
And I will get to John Gonzalez, but I did have to because I was actually looking at it. And again, it was from Home Improvement. It was Debbie Dunning. That was the actress who played Heidi. That was the woman that I was definitely most interested in. And I just realized, I think we're friends on Facebook. I mean, just what a small world. We're actually friends on Facebook. So
Nice.
I might have to, well, I've gotten a lot of friend requests on Facebook recently. I don't know if she friended me or not, but that's a separate discussion for a separate time. But clearly she's still definitely a attractive figure. And I got to get to the John Gonzalez comment before I get to Justin and Chris, because this is kind of going back to the Detroit theme here. And speaking of Detroit, I mean, there you go. For you, Brad, just for you. That's John. Do you see the John Gonzalez comment there on the screen? Would you care to elaborate before I get to guys?
Doesn't take him first.
Exactly. So, you know what? Listen, John Gonzalez, you can start dreaming because you might not get him. And like I said, it's going to depend on what happens. But keep dreaming, John Gonzalez, for your Detroit Lions, because in the end, we'll see. And I'm certainly still excited and ready. I'll say, John Gonzalez, I'm still waiting for that Goff jersey. I'm still waiting for that poster you were supposed to send me, and I'm certainly excited to announce that game with you. So, this might be the start of some hype for your Detroit Lions. So let's see who they draft.
Well, I mean, we'll certainly see, and obviously we're looking forward to streaming that game, I guess, on Sportswire Radio. And for whatever reason, I was listening to Salicata. I think it was yesterday. It was yesterday or Wednesday night, and all he kept talking about was not Jared Goff, but his girlfriend. Somebody, for whatever reason, it wasn't John Gonzalez who called up about Jared Goff, but it was some caller for whatever reason. And for whatever reason, that came up was Jared Goff's girlfriend. I think Salicata's line was, this is 3 o'clock in the morning, so it tells you this is what I'm doing, which is 3 o'clock in the morning. But he actually said, well, I guess they don't care if you're a bad quarterback for the Detroit Lions. I guess they just look at you and say, oh, you're an NFL quarterback. And that's just a different discussion for a different time. But I did hear some people say maybe the Jets move down and look for the opportunity to get more picks. I mean, do you fall into that discussion? I mean, what do you think the Jets here do with the draft?
Again, like Brad said, it really is going to depend on what happens at the top of the draft. I mean, you look at a couple of teams who are a little bit later in the first round, and you look at which team could, become quarterback needy and fall in love with one of these quarterback prospects, whether it's Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett. We saw this week that the Carolina Panthers had Kenny Pickett into their facilities. Now they're picking 6th overall. I don't see a possibility of anybody taking him before then. I did hear a slight mention of maybe Detroit too could be in love with them, and then they take Kenny Pickett. You know, the other thing is we have no idea who the number one pick is going to be. We don't have. This is not last year like a Trevor Lawrence or even in a non quarterback draft like when Jadeveon Clowney went first overall. We knew Jadeveon Clowney was going to be the first pick. He was the freak. He was the best player in the draft, and we don't have that this year. You know, it could be Aiden Hutchinson going one to the Jaguars. It could be Trayvon Walker out of I believe Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, could it be an offensive lineman? I don't think so, but I wouldn't doubt it because you could use all the protection possible for a second year quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, and I think that Hutchinson and Walker in some capacity are going to be 1-2, and you know what? I don't think he's going to get to the Eagles.
We'll ask Chris on that because he's the Philadelphia Eagles expert.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to reach. I don't think he'll reach the Eagles in the draft. I think what are the Eagles picking first?
No, they made the trade with the Saints. Now they only have 2 first-round picks, not 3. They're at like 18, 19, or 17.
Oh, so they're lower in the first round. I think Kenny Pickett will be gone by then.
I would like to think. I mean, if we're talking about
the quarterback either.
I was going to say. I mean, we'll get to Chris for sure in a second.
I'll tell you.
So for me, there's 2 options at number 4. It's either Kayvon Thibodeau or it's Sauce Gardner at number 4.
Okay. Okay.
I'd be good with either one. And then, obviously the Jets have the 10th pick in the draft. I'm gung-ho on taking a wide receiver at number 10, whether it's Drake London, the kid out of USC, Treylon Burks, or Garrett Wilson. I mean, you're going to certainly end up with a game-changing wide receiver. And you know what? Even though it's coming off an ACL injury, I wouldn't be that shy about picking Jamison Williams at 10 either. I mean, Jamison Williams has got major top-tier potential.
And I'm looking at the draft order here. So the Jets are 4th. We see that. We have the Jets also at 10. We have the Giants 5th and 7th. And the Philadelphia Eagles here, I see at 15, and I see them at 18 here. So we see that they flipped-flop with New Orleans. They'll have 19 New Orleans. Philly will have 18 and 15. So, yeah, I would be very surprised if Kenny Pickett were not picked by that point that the Eagles pick. And as to Chris's point, I mean, I really don't see why the Philadelphia Eagles would pick Kenny Pickett. But, I mean, I've heard you and Sharman speak a little bit in getting us ready here for the draft. To listen to yesterday's show, which we played a couple different times, and we'll play it throughout the weekend. In fact, I got to listen to it a couple of times this week. Sometimes I get to listen to it in drips and drabs, but I actually got a chance to listen to these different shows here a few different times over. So I was happy to do that and enjoyed the past show here. And obviously, give me your thoughts on the draft with the Jets and anything else before I get to another John Gonzalez comment.
Yeah, 4, I think it's going to come down to, if Thibodeau falls to 4, I think he's going to be the pick. If he doesn't fall to 4, then I think what Justin said. I think possibly Ahmad Gardner is going to be the 4. But, like we've been talking about, we really don't know what the top 3 are going to be because there's no top quarterback going. Nope. So that's out. And there's no clear number 1 pick in the draft this year. There's just not one guy who you're like, all right, he's going number 1 regardless. It's just it could go in so many different directions. That's the great thing about this year's draft. The last couple of years, it's been about the quarterbacks going early. This year, the quarterbacks aren't that strong, so they're not going to go that high, and no one's going to trade up, to get them. So, but I would love to see edge at 4. Hopefully, Thibodeau is there, and then at 10, I think 10 could go in a lot of different directions too. If they go Gardner at 4, then I think they go edge at 10. If they go edge at 4, I think 10 is going to be wide open. I personally wouldn't pick one of these receivers at 10. I don't know if they're top 10 receiver in this draft. I think we could get one with one of our second round picks. I I'm like last year, they were 3 guys, right? You had Jamar Chase, you had Devontae Smith, and you had Waddle. All 3 guys were top 10 wide receivers without a doubt. You knew that. These guys, I'm not saying they're bad. I just don't see them as top 10 guys. Like if we were picking where the Eagles are, like 18, 17, 19, no doubt. Wide receiver, no doubt there. So top 10, it's going to be weird. I could see it going in a lot of different directions, maybe even a trade down at that point. So this draft is wide open, and every mock you've seen is, all over the place. I think nobody's on the same,
Wavelength.
yeah. So which is cool. It'll be great. Going into the draft, we're kind of in in the fog right now because it could go in so many different directions, and I'm looking forward to it. And just going quickly with the Eagles, why I don't think they're going to pick quarterback. I think they're going to give Hurts one more year to prove himself. If he can't do it this year, they got the extra pick from the Saints in their trade. Now they have 2 picks in next year's draft in the first round. So if he does falter this year and he doesn't take that next step up, then they got 2 picks to do what they can to either move up or whatever. And they're also, kind of betting on the Saints not having that good of a year this year. So that same pick might be a top 5 pick, a top 10 pick. So
and thanks to the crack staff for giving us these numbers here. Hurts 3,144 yards, 16 TDs, 9 picks. Was 8-7, 61% completion percentage. Yeah, I mean,
I like Davis at 10.
I wouldn't mind that. I will say about Jalen Hurts, I don't know how good of a quarterback he is or how good of a quarterback he's going to be. But one thing I can tell you, and one thing I will never question with Jalen Hurts, is the heart. You could see a kid out there who gives it 110% every time. And you saw in that playoff game against the Buccaneers how he was attempting to start willing them back in the second half, and he made some pretty nice plays. Again, I don't know what his ceiling is, and that's why the Eagles will have to evaluate, and Nick Sirianni will have to figure out whether or not this is going to be his guy. But having that extra pick from the Saints is going to either work out because the Saints are bad and it's a top of the draft pick, or you could use the 2 picks to parlay and move up if you love a quarterback.
John Gonzalez certainly knows how to rub the needle in the wounds of Giants fans. He says, "I'll say this: Hurts is better than Danny Dimes." Yeah, I mean, I guess
he is.
Yeah.
Tom, let me make a quick comment. First of all, John Gonzalez, let me educate you for a second. All right, Hurts is not trash. Okay, he's not that bad. All right, give him another year. Relax yourself. He's not trash. Okay, I'll tell you what is trash. I'll tell you what's trash. The Pittsburgh Steelers are trash, okay? And I want you to tell me, John Gonzalez, comment right now. I want you to tell me what the Pittsburgh Steelers, your Pittsburgh Steelers, should do with the number 12 pick. You tell me right now, John Gonzalez, in the comment. Because that's trash. Not Jalen Hurts. He is not trash.
I would go, if they can, I would go tackle or guard because they need offensive line help.
They need a lot of help.
Yeah, they need a quarterback. They could use a quarterback too.
That's a fair point. I mean, listen. I mean, I guess.
Oh wait, John what's his name? Right?
Trubisky.
Yes. I'm not saying that's the.
I guess John Gonzalez, you are on the NFL draft clock. I mean, I guess remember ESPN, like the little music, the little jingle, that little jingle. I think that's what John Gonzalez is on right now. He's on that little NFL draft clock jingle that ESPN usually plays. So
I will say one thing to get back.
And I've got a comment in here from the host of the Wrestle Rewind podcast show, which actually is a huge part. They're one of the flagships of Sportswire Radio. That is obviously from Ted. Ted is pretty much the man behind the Rewind Wrestling podcast. You can hear them throughout the week on Sportswire Radio, and he agrees with Brad. He says Jalen Hurts isn't trash. He's just not starter level quality. I mean. Anybody ever thought anybody on that? I mean, I guess
I think in the right system, like the system he's in now, where they run the ball a lot, I think he's fine. It's just that when they go down like they did with Tampa, that's not a team that's built to come back after, going down 2 scores. They're just not that type of offense. But
I mean, he got them to the postseason. I mean, in
yeah,
one
he's
sense,
not
I mean,
bad. I don't think he's trash, but how high of a ceiling is he going to be? And I think this year he has to show something more than what he was last year. He has to show that I'm better than just that. What I mean?
But before I get to John Gonzalez's comment, and I've always thought about this about the Eagles season in a way, I mean, isn't it fair to say that this Eagles team was maybe a year ahead of schedule? Am I fair in saying that?
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't expecting them to be in the playoffs last year. I wasn't thinking they would make it, but they could do it again this year. They still got 2 first-round picks, but I don't think it's going to be on a quarterback for that reason. I think they're going to give Hurts one more year and just see what he could do. If he could take a step up, then they're like, okay, now we got our quarterback. But if he kind of gives you another season like he did, maybe they won't, and they'll draft a quarterback next year. And he said also he sees the Steelers taking Equano. I don't think Equano is going to last that long.
No,
I don't see Equano making it out of the top 5.
John Gonzalez is a dreamer.
Yeah,
he dreams.
He can. Penning, I can see it. That's a more possible.
Well, somewhere, I guess he's singing the famous Ozzy Osbourne song here. I'm just a dreamer with the snow in the video, and I have a couple of other things from the gang I'll get into here. I see it in our chat. I'm thinking about that Ozzy video, and Ted obviously chimes in and says, in the modern NFL, you can't be a one-dimensional offense. You can't be a run offense that passes. Sometimes modern NFL needs weapons in passing and running back. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty fair. Anybody want to add further to that?
I agree.
No, that's true. I mean, I can't really deny that. I mean, he's 100% right. I mean, you can't be one-dimensional. If you are, especially in this NFL, you're not going to have that much success, So, and that's why, I'll bring up like a guy like Lamar Jackson. I mean, everybody talks about how he can run, but he could also pass. I mean, everybody talks about him not being able to pass. He can throw the ball. He just needs some more weapons. So, that's not one-dimensional, where I can see where you can make the point.
Well, one-dimensional for Jet fans here, one-dimensional would be like Chad Pennington. Remember Chad Pennington?
There you go. Yeah,
that's one-dimensional, right? That's a one-dimensional quarterback as you're ever going to get. I mean, not to say that he wasn't successful when he was healthy, but that's a definition of a one-dimensional quarterback. I don't think some of these quarterbacks certainly would be the case there. And so certainly, I guess we'll see what happens. And what was John Gonzalez's other comment here? The steel curtain will close on you. So that's his thought. And Ted also chimes in and says, but you're right. Jalen will get another year. Prepping for the season by stocking up on adult beverages as an Eagles fan. But I mean, is it really that bad as an Eagles fan? I mean, there's been success. Yeah, I mean, I would have said like 20 years ago. Yeah, I definitely stock up on the adult beverages. I mean, for me,
you're not a Jets fan. Be thankful.
Yeah, you got a Super Bowl. You got a Super Bowl.
Worse.
Yeah, they just won a Super Bowl.
Browns fan.
You got a Super Bowl. Yeah. Imagine being a Lions fan. Oh, duh. Imagine being a Lions fan, right?
Oh, John Gonzalez seems pretty happy as a Lions fan. So, I mean, maybe some of them are still.
Right? And you got Jared Goff's girlfriend to look at throughout the season, apparently, according to Sal Licata. So, I mean, it can't be that bad, right? I mean, Calvin Johnson made the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, I guess you're going to look at the Hall of Fame and say, yeah, we got Hall of Famers.
Think about what a Browns fan has to deal with now with the whole Deshaun Watson thing with everything going on off the field.
Yeah.
Like, how do you root for this guy with all that stuff going on? And I don't know. And the Browns are, when you look at their roster, they're a pretty good team.
I know,
but they got so much stuff going on. I don't know. This year is going to be up for grabs with them.
No, it's certainly going to be a bad. And I want to plug also Ted's show, the Rewind Podcast, on Twitter and Instagram at Rewind Podcast. You usually get them here on sportnarium.com/player on Mondays, but we play them throughout the week because we play everything throughout the week because, well, I make the schedule. So, but they do a good job. And if you like wrestling and different commentary, it's a great gang. Obviously, Ivy's a part of that, and Ref Amy and Tyler Peters. Sometimes I guess Tyler Peters is a part of that, and the OG Will, and there's so many other people in the gang. I guess Nelios is part of the gang still. Though we were on the stream live here on, I don't think Nelios was with us, but They do a phenomenal job. Give them a follow on Twitter. And thank you, Ted, for all of your support and being pretty much, they're like the first show we had, actually. I got to give Ted this much. I think of like all of our American shows other than myself, when the original days of Sportnarium, I'm pretty sure that the Rewind Wrestling Podcast was like the first American show that we actually obtained. All of us other than myself were from the UK. So that is a little nugget. So we definitely want to be appreciative of their support and friendship. And John Gonzalez says, if the Eagles are so high on Hurts, why try to bring in Wilson?
Because Wilson's a future Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's more,
And yes, and we also want to thank Ted for that. Thank you, Tom. Love being a part of the family, of course. Love everything you guys do for us. And anybody have a thought on that about the Jalen Hurts? Because it is kind of an interesting thought there by John Gonzalez. Anybody have a thought on that real quick for Brad?
With the whole Russell Wilson situation?
Yeah.
I mean, look, anytime a future Hall of Fame quarterback goes on the trade market, you obviously explore that option and see whether or not the fit works and whether or not you have the assets to send back to said team that's trying to trade him. But I don't think that's I think that's one of those situations that's not a disrespect to Jalen Hurts. That's just kind of, all right, let's do our due diligence and see what Seattle's asking for or what said team's asking for based on whatever quarterback's available. And it just didn't work out. He went, Russell went to Denver, and Jalen's going to be the quarterback this year. So that's a situation. I don't see much wrong with it.
And they also liked Wilson originally from the draft. They just missed getting him. So,
and Ted agrees that because Hurts isn't a Wilson level quarterback.
Right.
I mean, listen, Russell Wilson's won a Super Bowl and should have 2 Super Bowls under his belt. I mean, I can't blame them. He's a Hall of Famer most likely, and if you would upgrade to a reasonable price, why wouldn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Listen, Russell Wilson's he's an elite quarterback.
You're not doing your job as a general manager if you're not at least making that phone call,
right?
Because the worst that can happen is the GM says, no, we're not going to trade him.
Listen, I mean,
you make that call. Why did you make that call?
Why did the Broncos make the call?
Listen, right? A generational quarterback, right? You have a potential generational quarterback. I know he's not, 5 years ago, but he's still a very, very good quarterback. And the quarterback business, right?
The only issue is that the Seattle Seahawks didn't have much success once they paid him. You think about it, the two Super Bowls that they got to, Super Bowls 48 and 49, were before he got.
Yeah, what they win 2 playoff games.
And let's remember, Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick, not a 1st-round pick.
Yeah,
he was making even less money than a 1st-round pick would be making.
Right.
So they took advantage of a window. They got their Super Bowl. They should have won a second, but it just went to show that once they paid him and other guys had went their separate ways because the cap space wasn't going to work out. He played well, but he wasn't the same.
No question about it. No, listen, I mean, obviously, those are some fair points here, and certainly looking at those runs here with the Super Bowls and afterwards, I mean, the record of success in the postseason wasn't the same. So, I mean, that's ultimately the end of the game here. And John Gonzalez says Hurts gets 1 more year. That's really, I think we all said that, though. Did anybody say differently here that
he
Hurts
gets 1 more year? And like I said, the Eagles got 2 first-round picks in next year's draft. So they're setting themselves up if he doesn't take that next step. If he's if he shows that he's basically a average quarterback, they'll probably draft somebody next year with one of those picks. Maybe they'll trade them both up and move up, and they just kind of set themselves up one way or the other, which I think was smart.
Yeah, no, undoubtedly, and I am looking at it here. Thanks to the crack staff for giving it to us here before we move on, certainly to some basketball, because John Gonzalez wants to. I don't know how much Dolan talk we'll actually give here.
No. Let's shut that down right now. This week we're talking about the playoffs. Okay, we're talking about playoff teams. Okay, we're not talking about teams that did not make the playoffs. All right. Like my New York Knicks. We're talking about playoff teams, John Gonzalez. Don't you want to talk about winners? Aren't you sick and tired of talking about the Detroit Lions and all the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Sometimes people like to
all
speak
these
about
losing teams.
But you do know, to be fair, sometimes people like to talk about losing. What's the old adage that, at least in news this was, the old adage was the bad news sells the papers, and I guess in some sense you can look at it when it comes to the radio, sometimes the losing sells better than the winning. I mean,
Well, yeah, listen, if you really want to talk about losing teams, the Baltimore Orioles won tonight. So if you really want to talk about that,
we're going to get to
the Yankees. You want to talk about losing teams, and there you go.
Well, certainly we'll get to that undoubtedly, and again, obviously, Russell Wilson, 2 playoff wins he's had in his career after the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Which, thank you for the crack staff for checking that, as I was trying to get to that, but obviously, I guess we'll get to it here as we've got a little more time here left, maybe another 20 or so minutes, and I do want to get to the NBA playoffs, and I'll get to some predictions for that, and then we'll move on in closing thoughts and a thought or two on the Yankee game tonight before we say sayonara and happy Easter and such. So. I mean, the Brew Force, everybody wants to hear what you have to say about the predictions. Then we'll get to Justin. I mean, so the NBA playoffs are pretty much here. Obviously, we still have a game going on here in the Western Conference. But, I mean, give me your thoughts on some predictions and run through these series here very quickly.
Yeah, well, let me first talk about the comments I promised earlier in the show about the play-in tournament.
Yes.
And let me talk about it. First of all, let's make sure that we say play-in. It's not the playoffs. Okay, you're playing in to get into the playoffs. Now, let me make this clear, okay? From an entertainment standpoint, okay, I'm very happy with the play-in tournament, okay? The games are good. They're exciting. They're fun. All right, Justin Gianelli, is getting excited here for some NBA talk, okay? But listen, when we get into the play-in, okay, it's definitely entertaining as a viewer, but I'm going to take this from another angle, okay?
I like the play-in. I have to say, I liked it. I did
because listen, I'm actually going to go the opposite way when it comes to, besides the entertainment as a fan, okay? When it comes to the play-in tournament, I'm kind of pissed off as a former player and as a coach. Because listen, first of all, I'm just happy we're not watching this game right now, because how the hell should we be excited about the Pelicans against the Clippers with
especially Paul George being out?
Paul George, all right, and you're watching Pelicans and Clippers. The Pelicans had no business even having a chance to be in this game to begin with. I mean, what was their record? Like 14 games on the 500? How the heck did they make the playoffs?
They were 10.
Still, not good, okay? Not good. That's the point, okay? Not good, all right? The Cleveland Cavaliers, okay, to their credit, all right, actually had a very good season, okay? I think they were deserving of being in the playoffs. Instead, they get a Brooklyn Nets team in the first playing that obviously had their weapons and were better. And then you get unlucky with playing the Hawks too. And this is a team, right, that played really well season long, and they're not in the playoffs because you got to go through this play-in tournament. I mean, as a fan, or as a coach or player, as someone who's looking at it, let's just say looking as a Cleveland fan right now, I'd be pissed off. This team should be in the playoffs. And I really don't think that the play-in tournament, because maybe they had 2 bad games, and maybe they played 2 opponents that were playing better at the time, all right, ultimately should always affect the fact that they should be in the playoffs. I think the Cavaliers deserved it. They arguably had one of the coaches of the year. They had some players overachieved. Their record was really good. I mean, I just think they should have been in the playoffs. And watching the Western Conference, why the hell do we got to be talking about the Lakers most of the season? Oh, maybe they'll make the play-in. They should have been long gone out of the playoffs.
I was watching the Spurs, and the Spurs had no business being in.
All these teams. I mean, the fact that we even have to talk about them in the play-in tournament, I mean, it's embarrassing. They don't deserve to be there. So in the end, that's my gripe with the play-in. If we had teams that were competitive or should be there, really, I mean, I'd be a little bit happier.
Well, the Western Conference of the days where I think, what was it, one year Phoenix won like 48 or 49 games and missed the playoffs. I mean, those days are long gone. I mean, this is not the same Western Conference where we had teams.
Exactly. So let me now get to my series predictions. All right, because it's going to be really entertaining in these playoffs. Let me just start with the 1-8 matchup in the East. The Miami Heat against the Atlanta Hawks. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care what the hell. James Cronin's already texted me about putting money on this, all right? I will say I will gladly put money on this because the Atlanta Hawks.
Did he get his parents' allowance money? Is that what it is?
I don't know. He's feeling good right now for some reason, all right? Meanwhile, John Gonzalez thinks I'm feeling good by thinking I could pay a whole Duffy's check. All right, but ultimately, I'll be honest with you.
Check, by the way, it was $23 for a burger the other day.
I'm gonna work with James Cronin to help you guys get some burgers because I'm going to pick the Miami Heat, and I'm going to say that this is not the Atlanta Hawks ain't winning this series. No way in hell they're winning this series. I don't care what anybody says. Okay, the Miami Heat played really well down the stretch. I know they had that tough 4 or 5 game skid where they had the fight on the bench. But you're watching a team that's just starting to really play the high-level basketball that a number 1 seed is, and they are a number 1 worthy seed. They have a great starting lineup. They have a great 6th man off the bench. They have really gritty defenders and heart and leadership and a great coach. I think that they're just going to outwill the Hawks. The Hawks have a lot of talent, but Miami has everything to stop the Atlanta Hawks on their team, and I think they're going to do just that. So Miami is a definite pick. James Cronin, give me the amount you want to bet because I'm winning it, and I'll just take it from you right now. Okay, the Miami Heat are winning that series. Okay, that's number 1. Okay, number 2, let's get to Justin Gianelli's jersey. All right, the Boston Celtics against the Brooklyn Nets. Okay, right now, I'm going back and forth on this one. I think I'm going to put it out right now. If Robert Williams returns to this series, all right, I'm picking the Boston Celtics. If he doesn't, I'm picking the Brooklyn Nets. And again, we'll see if when he comes back, I'm hoping mid-series. All right, but ultimately, right now, since he's not currently back and we don't know yet, I'll go on the record and say the Brooklyn Nets win this series. I just think that his rim presence and his ability to be that guy who they could throw the lob to on offense and defensively his presence, right, is big for Boston. They don't have that. That's going to be a major issue. If they have it, okay, then I would pick the Celtics, but I'm not going to right now. I'll pick the Nets. All right, now let's just get to the next one. 3 against 6, Milwaukee against Chicago, okay? I'll guarantee it. All right, just like Charles Barkley does on TNT, I'll say guaranteed, okay? The Milwaukee Bucks are winning. I don't think anyone's picking Chicago. They were
8-15 to end the
season. They were not playing great basketball. No. Milwaukee has arguably one of the top 3 MVP candidates and one of the best players in the NBA. All right, the Bucks, no doubt, are going to win. But let's now put this up on the screen, okay?
Get to this one.
All right, yeah. The 76ers against the Raptors, 4-5. You heard me, John Gonzalez. Everybody, you hear me. Canada's going to be real happy. All right, and so is Justin Gianelli when James Harden's out of the playoffs in the first round. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the Philadelphia 76ers are going down to the Toronto Raptors. I'm telling you right now, the Toronto Raptors are going to beat the Philadelphia 76ers, and I'm going to predict it's going to be in 6 games. Now, why? Why? I'm going to say this, all right? Joel Embiid's going to have a great series, but have you guys been watching the Toronto Raptors play basketball? They have a great team. Okay, last time I checked, right now, Philadelphia looks like a grade 2. And right now, with a grade 2, okay, you're arguably, thinking about James Harden and his playoff past and saying it might just be a grade 1. It might just be Joel Embiid trying to carry the ship, okay? Tobias Harris hasn't been playing that well, but it's not even his own fault because they don't get him the ball enough, okay? Their players off the bench, okay, aren't doing anything. Also, keep in mind, this is ridiculous. Thibault got 1 COVID shot, did not get the second one, and can't play in Toronto. So, their best defender can't play in Toronto. So that is going to hurt them, amongst other things. Okay, so Doc Rivers as well. I'll say this. Doc Rivers in the playoffs has not been good either. Okay, so I'm going to put my money on Nick Nurse. I'm going to put my money on the better team right now, which is the Toronto Raptors. So that is my pick for that. Now, quickly over to the Western Conference. We're not even going to talk about the first one. The Phoenix Suns against whoever the hell wins this garbage game tonight. Okay? 4-0 right now. Predict. Sweet. First round. All right. Phoenix Suns. Sweet. Over. Okay? No talking about that. Okay? Second one. All right. Memphis Grizzlies against the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is going to be an entertaining series. All right. This is going to be entertaining. Patrick Beverley getting into John Morant. 2 young teams going at it. But I will say Memphis. All right, a lot of people are going on and saying that, the Timberwolves should be more respected. Why don't you respect the Memphis Grizzlies more? I mean, the Memphis Grizzlies have had an amazing season. I mean, without John Morant, they're an extremely good team. With him, they're lethal. So I think the Grizzlies are going to win this series. I don't think it's going to be in 4 or 5 games. I think it'll be in 6. All right, I think Minnesota will get a couple wins on their home floor, but I do think that the Memphis Grizzlies will take care of business ultimately. Now, this is one of the more interesting ones. The Golden State Warriors against the Denver Nuggets, 3-6.
Very intriguing.
You got, and let me just take this off.
And he got cut off, I guess. It was really so interesting that he got cut off there. So we'll let him finish on those picks, and we'll move over to Justin, and we'll get him in here, Justin. So give me your thoughts on some of these series, and we'll let Brad finish off here and when he returns eventually.
Yeah, I'll kind of roll in the same order he will. I'll start with the Miami Heat versus the Atlanta Hawks in the 1-8 matchup of the Eastern Conference. And like Brad said, Miami Heat are more than deserving number 1 seed this year. They're a very talented team. Between Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, lots of guys stepping up, playing contributing roles into their success this year. I really do believe that Miami is poised to have a big playoff run. And, Atlanta might have the best player in the series with Trae Young, but overall, I think Miami's depth is going to prove to be too much for Nate McMillan and the Atlanta Hawks. So, I'll take Heat in 6.
Okay.
So, and now moving over to the Nets Celtics, I'm going to abstain from the pick in the series.
You were saying that to me last night.
I'm gonna give some keys to the series here for the Brooklyn Nets. Again, like Brad was saying about Robert Williams when he's coming back, they're looking at the earliest potentially being Game 6. So, I mean, you're looking at the first 5 games at least without Robert Williams, and that's not even a guarantee that he returns for the series. And that opens up a lot of space down low for Andre Drummond and Nicholas Claxton. You also have LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin. I don't know how much minutes they're going to get. I know at this point, once you get to the playoffs, you're going to start shortening your rotation, and you're going to play the guys that that are going to be out there. And like I talked about last week, one of the biggest things the Nets did was waive James Johnson and convert Kessler Edwards to a standard NBA contract. So Kessler Edwards has been one of their better defenders this year. You can get some energizing minutes out of him, and hopefully, you find a way to contain Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, because those two are going to be a problem. But I really think it's going to be the bigs that really, in my opinion, I think could give Brooklyn the edge, especially not seeing Robert Williams till at the very least Game 6.
Okay, and then give me your thoughts here on the other 2 series in the East.
So, in the 3-6 matchup, that's going to be the Milwaukee Bucks against the Chicago Bulls. I think not getting Lonzo Ball back this season really has hurt the Chicago Bulls, and we've seen it in the second half. We've seen a couple of teams in the East, like the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Chicago Bulls, go from the top of the Eastern Conference standings, slide down. I mean, even the Nets slid down from the top of the Eastern Conference standings. In mid-January, before Kevin Durant got hurt, the Nets were, one of the top 2 seeds of the Eastern Conference. So, they slid down. They fell to the 7th seed. They're still, they're at least healthy and playing together. The Bulls are still not all that healthy. DeMar DeRozan is going to do all he can. He might put up 40 every game, but at some point that's just not going to be enough. And, when you're talking about the likes of Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday, I mean, that's a monster 3 right there. And they're all playing at an exceptionally high level. And, the Milwaukee Bucks, I would say the Bulls are lucky to win a game of the series. I do agree with Brad on that front. In the 4-5 matchup, as much as I'd love to see the Toronto Raptors win, actually, I don't want to see the Toronto Raptors win. I want to see the Philadelphia 76ers win this series. You know why? Because the earlier the Toronto Raptors are eliminated from this postseason, the earlier we could stop talking about the stupid COVID.
I think John Gonzalez did a few minutes ago.
COVID vaccine and who's eligible and who's ineligible because they got the shot or didn't get the shot. I don't want to have to be in a potential Eastern Conference final situation, and the Nets have to play 4 games at Scotiabank Arena, and Kyrie Irving can't play. So let's just get on with it. I think the Sixers win in 7 games. Again, it's going to be tough. Matisse Thybulle can't play in the games in Canada. That's going to really hurt them defensively. James Harden has looked like a slog on the court, and he's not shooting the ball well. He's done a good job facilitating, but he needs to shoot better, and he needs to score 25, 30 points a night when Danny Green hasn't been great. Tobias Harris hasn't been great. Joel Embiid can only do so much, and the Toronto Raptors have a ton of weapons. You're talking about Pascal Siakam,
The deep team.
You're gonna have OG Anunoby back for the postseason. Fred VanVleet had a terrific year, and Gary Trent's had a terrific year as well. So the Raptors and Nick Nurse, have done wonders after missing the postseason last year. Bouncing back with a really, really good young squad. So and over to the Western Conference, like Brad said, I mean the Suns are going to steamroll through the first round. It looks like it might be the Clippers. We'll see what happens there. I don't foresee the Pelicans having much of a chance. And one quick statistic that we've seen so far, because now this is the second year that they've done the NBA play-in tournament where the 7, 8, 9, and 10 play for the final 2 spots. The 7 seed is 4-0 in the last 2 years. The 10 seed's 0-4. Last year, you did have a 9 seed, the Memphis Grizzlies.
Beat the Golden State Warriors.
They beat the Golden State Warriors, became the 8th seed. And then you had you have a 9 seed this year with the Atlanta Hawks beating the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, and you had in the Eastern Conference last year, the 8th seed defeated the 9th seed, just like we might see here. So, you're really not seeing much change. So, if you're against the play-in tournament, which I'm kind of iffy about it. Like it's okay. It gives us a couple extra games to watch, but they're not even super compelling games to watch. Like the Pelicans are 36-46. Do they really deserve to be in the postseason?
No.
They don't. And they don't stand a single chance, and neither do the Clippers. I mean, right now, third quarter, 3:10 to go. We have 75-66 LA over New Orleans. We'll see how that holds up. But going to the 2-7 matchup, that's going to be a compelling series. The Minnesota Timberwolves at the Memphis Grizzlies. That's going to be that's really going to be about a lot of inexperience. Both teams are going to be very inexperienced in the postseason. I know 4 years ago the Timberwolves did make the playoffs before getting swept out of the first round, but it's going to be compelling from all the stars, from Karl Anthony Towns to Anthony Edwards to D'Angelo Russell. And then on the other side, John Morant. Desmond Bane had a terrific season for the Memphis Grizzlies. Steven Adams providing some minutes, as a big. They're just they're a great bunch, and Memphis is poised to do some damage in the postseason. But I do get concerned about. I do get concerned about their experience, and I think this will be a 6-game series. But I think the Minnesota Timberwolves give them a run for their money. So I'll take Memphis in that series. Moving over to the 3-6 series, Golden State versus Denver. You're going to get Steph Curry back. So the Warriors are going to be close to whole here, if not whole. It's the first time we'll see Curry and Thompson together in the postseason since he tore his ACL. In game, I think 5 or 6 it was, and we'll see if the Golden State Warriors have another run in them, because they're the one team. I mean, Phoenix now does too because of Chris Paul, all the playoff he's had. They went to the finals last year. They have some playoff experience now too. But if there's one team in the Western Conference that has the playoff experience, it's the Golden State Warriors. They have that championship pedigree. They have Klay Thompson. They have Steph Curry. They have Draymond Green, guys who are key cogs in their 3 championships, and they're still there, and they're still all great players.
And Klay Thompson finished the season strong.
He was on fire, and if his shot is anything like it was at the end of the season, the Golden State Warriors can easily get their way back to the NBA Finals. I don't care how good Phoenix has been this season. The championship pedigree of the Golden State Warriors and head coach Steve Kerr, that's going to win out in a 7-game series. It just will. And so I'll give me Golden State in that one. I'm just not sure about Denver. They're still hurting from losing Jamal Murray at the end of last year. And you could tell they're just not run the same at the point guard position with Monty Morris. He's a good complementary backup point guard. You really like the way he moves the ball around, but he's not Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray has that it factor in the way he can score the basketball as well. And then to the 4-5 series, you have an interesting situation between Utah and Dallas, because now Luka Doncic is not going to be playing after straining his calf in a meaningless Game 82, and he's out for Game 1, and it's uncertain he doesn't play in Game 2 either. Now, one thing I want to criticize the NBA for is, why do we got to have 20 days off between games? Let's take a look. Let's just look at the Nets series real quick. Tomorrow, Sunday's Game 1, right?
5 days.
Wednesday's Game 2. Saturday is Game 3. So in the span of 6 days, 7 days, you're playing 3 games. Come on, can we play some more games, please? Can we play every other day? I mean, you're still getting a day of rest. If you want to say, okay, let's give them an extra day in between.
And that was in the NHL with the Islanders. Remember, we swept the Penguins in 2019. We had 12 days off between series because there was a goofy quirk. So these quirks, they're goofy.
It works in both ways.
Jump in real quick for me.
I was just going to say, I remember years ago when the NHL used to have one conference play one night, and then
the other play the other. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know why they stopped that. I think the NBA would be great doing that too. Eastern Conference one night, Western Conference the next night. This way they get the day off, but it's
the
consistent.
TV deals.
Well, and you know what? And I know it also has to do with these arenas. There might be a concert one night, so you have to look at the entire venue, the venue and all their schedule. What events are they having? Yeah, I understand it. There's all these quirks that go into it, especially now we're heading into the spring and summer. More. I know it's an indoor event. I know these are indoor stadiums, but there's more events happening. The better the weather there is. But going back to this Utah-Dallas series, it's weird on both sides of things, because there is potential chemistry issues between the Utah Jazz and the hatred that's gone back for a couple of years between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and a coach that's on the hot seat in Quinn Snyder, because the Jazz, who consistently get to the playoffs year in and year out, haven't done damage in the postseason. They need to go on. They're a team. You want to talk about pressure? I think Utah has the most pressure in the Western Conference. They're a team that's got to get deep into the playoffs, and I don't know that they're good enough to do so. And that could mean Donovan Mitchell's on his way out. So I mean, who knows what's going to happen between them? And you know what? I'm going to take Utah in this series, because I just don't know how the Dallas Mavericks are going to perform without Luka Doncic. It's just going to be an incredibly tall task. I mean, I don't know if you're going to have to ask a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie to really have to step up, and make those extra shots that Luka would otherwise be taking.
Those are some very, very great points here. And Brad, before we move on and get a quick thought in the Yankees score and get closing thoughts before we get out of here, give me 2 thoughts quickly on the 2 series where you got cut off, and that was Golden State and Denver, and obviously Dallas, our old friend Brendan Fitzpatrick against the Utah Jazz. Give me your thoughts real quick on those 2 series and who you think wins.
Absolutely. So I'm going to first say I 100% agree with Justin Gianelli. So right now you guys see it behind me. To my dear friend Brendan Fitzpatrick, I loved your Mavericks, but I'm very sorry. You guys cannot overcome an 0-2 series deficit after losing both games at home, because you're going to. All right, you're going to. All right, because Luka Doncic is not going to play Game 1 or Game 2. All right, so ultimately, I'm just saying to myself, you're down 0-2, you're going to Utah, and you have to win 4 games, and it's just not going to happen. They're not going to do it. Utah's a good team. If you're down 0-2 to them, that's not going to work. So I'm taking the Utah Jazz as well. And to that Golden State Denver series, I just think it comes down to which team is better. And listen, to give Denver credit and to give Jokic credit, the reason why I have Nikola Jokic as my MVP is because of what he's done with this team. This team around Jokic is not necessarily, their best team. They have some solid players, but Jokic makes every single player on that roster much better than they are. And his numbers, he literally is averaging a triple-double this year, almost. He's very close. So, he's going to obviously keep them in games. I think Jokic is actually going to win them 3 games in that series, but they're not going to win the 7th. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down
to 3. I have them maybe.
I think Jokic can do it. I think he can win them 3 games, but I don't think he'll win them 4. I think that it will come down to Game 7, and I think that Golden State will win and move on. So, again, I agree with Justin on the pick, and ultimately we'll see what happens. And once again, to my dear friend Brendan Fitzpatrick, it's been real seeing your Mavericks. I really thought you guys would get further, but Luka Doncic, he should have just taken that suspension. He should have just taken the 1-game suspension, not played, and instead, the NBA gave him the game back. He played, he got hurt. It was almost like karma.
It's funny. He didn't even appeal it. The NBA just
received it. The NBA just gave it, which is, to me, it was ridiculous. But karma hits you sometimes, and Brendan Fitzpatrick, your Mavericks got it. So ultimately, that's the deal there. And the final thought, because I just saw it pop up on the screen, John Gonzalez. Don't even bring up the damn Pistons on this show ever again, all right?
You know what? We actually need to mention the stat with the Pistons.
But don't you get it? He brought up the Lions. He brought up the Tigers. He brought up the Pistons. He brought up the Motor City. Home improvement got mentioned. The only thing he's missing is the Red Wings. There really isn't much to talk about the Red Wings in this season. So,
we do have to mention one stat with the Detroit Pistons, though.
Okay.
Remember when we went to the COVID bubble and they invited, I think, 24 of the 30 teams into the bubble?
Yes, I do.
And then last year they started the 7-10 play-in tournament, and this year the 7-10 play-in tournament. Do you know that the Detroit Pistons are the only team in the NBA to have not either reached the playoffs or have been invited to the bubble play-in or the last 2 play-ins? They're the only team to completely miss the playoffs all 3 years.
Boy, how the mighty have fallen. The Detroit
and by the way, I have to take a slight issue with Brad here with the upset alert sign because I don't consider a 4-5 an upset. I don't.
That's a fair point. That's a good point.
I consider, although maybe not in Eastern Conference, because I think the Celtics and Nets, even though seeding is 2-7, I think that's probably the most even series. I think 4-5s are always the most even series.
Yeah, because they're usually in the win total. They're very similar.
I get it because he's taking the lower seed, and I do agree that the Raptors can win. I think the Sixers will win, and I agree Utah will win over Dallas. So I can see the lower seeds winning, but I don't. It's not really an upset to me.
Chicago over Milwaukee would be an upset, right?
Yeah, if you're saying Chicago beats Milwaukee in 7 games, then hold your horses. We got ourselves a...
Well, let me just say this. So with 4-5, we all know it's normally a toss-up. So I will say it's not always a definitive, upset. But I'll go back to football because you guys remember what I said on this show in football. I put that upset alert on there. It's not about that. It's about the betting here, all right? Everybody's going to pick the higher seed, the team at the home. Oh, Jesus Christ. Really? You're trying to push the button to talk about the Knicks. I don't want to talk about this team. I don't want to talk about nothing with this team. So no Pistons talk, no Knicks talk, all right? We don't want to talk about good teams on this show, all right? Charles, please help me.
Well, he's not helping you. He's definitely not helping you, and clearly – those are some of our picks here when it comes to the NBA playoffs, and we'll have certainly a lot to get into next week. And before we get closing thoughts, very quickly, Aroldis Chapman, anybody now still worried about him? You want to jump in there, Chris, before we get out of here?
I'm more worried about the offense. Scoring 1 run against the Baltimore Orioles, I'm more concerned about that.
Hey, I'll say one thing, Chris. That Baltimore Orioles, they moved that fence back in left field. It's a little harder for you guys to hit those home runs now. All All right, a little harder.
I just want hits. I don't care about a home run. It's so frustrating. I mean, this team has had problems hitting with runners in scoring position for years now.
Yeah,
And
I heard a lot. I was surprised when I was hearing that stat on the radio during the week, and I was surprised that it's been that big of a problem for the Yankees.
And I'll
over
say,
the past
and
few
I'll,
years.
and I'll say, and I'll
reason
say
why we
another
haven't won a
thing,
World
and I'll say
Series
another
in
thing here for our Yankee
12 years,
audience.
13 years now.
I'll say another thing here for our Yankee audience. Stop complaining. You're going to sleepwalk your way to 90-plus wins this year.
You think? You still
They
think?
won.
So?
I
We
think
had the
so. I
same
think he's
complaints
right.
about. Listen, we had the same complaints about them last year. They won 92 games.
That's
This
a
team
good
wins
point.
90-plus games every single year. They've had a winning record since every year since the year I was born, 1992. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sick of the complaining from Yankee fans. They've been so spoiled for so long. It's just enough. At some point, yes, we need them to suck. We need them to win 60 games because it's due. It's time for it.
For the Tobacco Road.
It's not due.
For the Tobacco
We're
Road
due to win a
audience,
World Series.
for the Tobacco Road audience, that's almost the argument for there, and I'm sure we'll get into this a lot after the basketball season winds down, is with the Atlanta Braves. For all those years, the Braves won the NL East and the NL West, and
I think it was 15 in a row, before 14 in a row.
14 in a row. Right, and it became to a point where it was like, you didn't even see playoff games, Phil, where people kind of like, they became like it just second nature. They almost took it for granted. So, I mean,
they only won one World Series out of that stretch.
Yep, and that was a big part of that. So, I mean, look, we'll certainly see with the Yankees, but again, it is an ominous sign that they certainly against the Orioles continue to struggle, but we'll see what happens here these next two games, and certainly the Yankees still, again, it's very early. You really can't
Still win the series.
Yeah, you can't get excited about these starts. I mean, like I said, there's a history littered full of great starts and where they end up. So, I mean, this was some of the stuff we spoke about here on Sportswire Radio, and certainly want to wish everybody a happy Easter now that we're getting close to Easter. And I want to give and then
John taken off.
John Gonzalez says here, good emotions, Justin. The brood is rubbing off on you. Yeah, I kind of did see that a little bit today. I did see a little bit of that. That's good. I guess that's good. It's good for the listeners. It's good for the audience. We had a lot of people. Comment today. A lot of people. I tell you what, people. I think each week we get more and more people that kind of jump into this. So that means that people like what we're doing, and certainly we obviously have more partners and more supporters. The Massachusetts Pirates, we'll see what they bring to the table. We'll get some players on here and such. But I want to give everybody closing thoughts here and let everybody allowed to speak and promote their social medias, anything else they want to share for their show. So I'm going to go with Chris here first. Obviously, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts, anything talking Rivals you want to promote, and Lift Off Jets. And obviously, thank you for all you do for us here at the station. Obviously, happy Easter to you and your beautiful family. And I can't thank you enough, my friend. Anything you want to share, promote, plug, and the floor is yours, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Tom. Happy Easter, everybody. Great show as always, guys. Love doing this Friday nights. Monday we'll be doing Talking Rivals. We'll be talking about the Yankees. Patrick will be talking about Boston. Nothing good, nothing great, actually. I just see the same problems with the Yankees. I know it's only the first week, but I see the same thing as last year. Not hitting with runners in scoring position. Pitching is going to be solid all year, and they got guys in the minors that could come up and be fine. So I'm not worried about the pitching. I'm worried more about the offense. But we should have a good episode Monday. And then Wednesday, Sharman and I will be doing a mock draft, our first and only mock draft, thankfully. I know we've seen so many of them, but we're going to try one ourselves. So we're going to do that Wednesday, and we'll see what we get. We'll figure it out on Liftoff Jets show. So follow us on Liftoff Jets on Twitter, Talking Rivals at Talking Rivals, and my personal one is CP7NY.
Absolutely all great stuff here. Enjoyed the Liftoff Jets show here, the Talking Rivals show as well. We'll continue to play both shows here throughout the weekend, so we will definitely get it out there for those who like to listen. We had some people in different countries check out some of these shows throughout the week, so that's always a good sign that people are out there listening. So looking forward to that. Good job, Chris, as always, and happy Easter to you. And Justin, I want to give you the floor, my friend. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug, promote, baseball, banter related, anything else on your mind, any social media. And I can't thank you enough. And the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me once again. Before I get to plugging my social media and all that stuff,
Sure.
we didn't touch on it tonight, and I do want to because this one hurt a lot, and that was on the passing of Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, good point.
As a fan of Ohio State, somebody I really love watching at Ohio State, was really high on him, coming out of college, and hoping he was going to succeed in the NFL. And it's just a heartbreaking situation, and something that really bothered me all weekend. It's just a sad situation, that was developing, and just want to send condolences to the family. I mean, it's just 24 years old is just.
Some of the comments, I mean, was it Adam Schefter and Gil Urban or Gil Brandt?
I don't want to get into that stupid garbage before I say something stupid. They have no business, talking in that way. And I don't want to hear your garbage apologies because you obviously had intent to say it, but all that just stuff bothered me.
A young man's life was gone, and 24 years old, and
it's heartbreaking.
It is. 24 years old. 24.
Yeah, that's one that really got to me. Even though it's a younger athlete that last time I felt like this was when Kobe Bryant died.
Yeah, it's a tough one. 24 years old. And as somebody that's been at the scene of I shouldn't even say this, but I'll say it as somebody that has seen the body bags and been there, at death scenes and has had to console loved ones and different things in the community. These are very, very hard moments, certainly for that family. Again, a young man, 24 years old, regardless of whatever it was. So, I mean, certainly, as a reverend, we get can asked a lot for these things, and what do we do, what we should say, and what you can only say is to pray for his family, to pray for him, to pray for his supporters, and to pray for the people that he made happy, and know that the memory of this man will live on much more than what it was on this earth, and just hope for the best and hope for better days. And I'm glad that you did bring this up because it was a very, tough week and a lot to talk about here in the sports world, but I am glad that you did bring that up, and certainly I will pray for you because I can certainly see that it has impacted you, and we want to make sure that those that we care about, like you, certainly are in our thoughts, and certainly, again, our thoughts most certainly, though, go to the family of Dwayne Haskins. Absolutely.
So you can find me on Twitter at JJNelly12, the Baseball Banter Twitter page as well at BBallBanterSM. On Sunday, during so the recordings will be during the Sunday night baseball game. As you heard from last Sunday, I was kind of live play-by-play in the end.
Yeah, it was kind of fun.
End of the Yankees Red Sox game.
It was fun.
And obviously, we'll get to some of the things. I got to some of the things that happened during the week. Like I touched on the Kershaw perfect game.
The contract you talked about, Vladimir Guerrero, you spoke about. I mean, it was some good stuff, man. That was some good.
And I was watching the end of the Yankees. I was watching the end of the Yankees Blue Jays game on Wednesday as well while I was recording. So, and this week is Padres Braves on Sunday Night Baseball, which would be a big storyline because I want to touch on the arrival of Mackenzie Gore. And we talked. John made a good comment about the Padres having one of the best rotations in baseball, 1 through 5, and the fact that Blake Snell goes on the IL and they could bring up a prospect like Mackenzie Gore. That's somebody I certainly want to spend some time on Sunday's episode.
Absolutely looking forward to all that. Looking forward to hearing that. Obviously, after the Nets game, it'll be a good Sunday. Got Nets basketball, got some good baseball to look forward to, and a lot out there in the world. So great stuff, Justin. Really enjoyed your content along with Chris as well. And certainly, we didn't save the best for last, but we certainly saved, I guess, the most interesting, to say the least, for last, or maybe the most colorful or brute-like for last. I'm trying to figure the right words here that can make everybody happy and enjoy what he has to say. But this is none other than the brute force Brad Weiss we were speaking about. Certainly, he is going to have a lot to say. We have some birthday shout-outs I know we have to get to here. We have a name change. We have a bunch of other things I'm sure to get to. We'll certainly try to do it in as quick time as possible. But I will certainly give you the floor, my friend, for some brute-like closing thoughts. And You definitely know the drill. I know you definitely have a lot to address. So fire away, my friend, because I'm expecting some brute-like comments here. As John Bon Jovi would famously sing, you are certainly going to go out here in a blaze of glory, no doubt.
Oh, for sure. Thank you, Tom, for another great week of the Sports Report on Friday Night Live here on Sportswire Radio. Thank you to everybody listening. Chris, Justin, thank you guys as always for another great Friday night. For those listening, you can follow me on Instagram at bweiss20, on Twitter at bradweiss20, and searching Bradley Weiss on Facebook. You will not want to miss my picture with the Tom Seaver statue tomorrow, as I'll be at the Mets game against
I'm
the
sure I'll be
Mets.
reminded about it. I'm sure.
Yeah, you'll see it for sure. So that'll be on my social media tomorrow. A bunch of content from Citi Field tomorrow. So be sure to tune into my social media pages. I do definitely want to take this time. Today is a special day in the Weiss household, as a force that is not named yet is turning 1 year old today. That is my puppy Cooper. My puppy Cooper is turning 1 year old today. And I'm certainly going to have a nice day of excitement with my puppy Cooper. So I want to give him a happy birthday.
Do you get like a dog cake? What do you do like for a dog?
Oh, we got a cake for him. Yeah, we did. So, we got a nice little banner and everything. You guys will see that on Instagram as well. So we're here to celebrate our great dog.
What like a dog money? Like, you know how we get birthday money as kids? Do you give like a dog like dog money? Like, what is that?
Yeah, you get him a treat or some, I don't got that money. Everybody thinks I do for some, hamburgers and stuff. But, I don't got that money. So, but speaking of that, Tom Bryce, certainly exciting times as well, because it's almost time for Tom Bryce to hit Long Island. And it's certainly going to be exciting to see in the next 2 weeks when Tom comes down. I've been watching the weather forecast for the next couple of weeks to try to find Tom a nice day. But unfortunately,
the following week looks better than this coming early week. It did not look. Monday, Tuesday did not look good at all. They did not look.
Right.
No,
this week's going to be rough coming up. It's going to be cold. So hopefully the following week, the last week of April, you guys, for all our supporters here on Long Island, come out to All American Burger and join me, Tom, and the rest of the crew as we'll be there with Tom. And I'll certainly make my way out to Duffy's suit. I promise. We'll bring the crew from Long Island as well. We'll have a nice Sportswire dinner, so I'm looking forward to that as well. So again, that's all great stuff. Now to get further in, I gotta talk about this. There's no doubt I can't miss this. I'm going to start by mentioning that this Thursday coming up, I'm extremely excited to announce that my Level Up 8th grade team is going to officially be playing Matt Hurd, Ryan McNeely, and the Long Island Sound. We're going to go at it this Thursday. It's certainly going to be very exciting to play against their program. They have a great program. So if you don't already follow them, it's Long Island Sound.
They have a heads up because, listen, the Hurd family, the McNeely family, I mean, what did you expect? They weren't going to have a good program, a good team? I mean,
no. But, the fact that they have developed
how many McNeelys are out there. I really lost count.
Well, like I said, the fact that they've came so quickly with a really good program out in Suffolk, it's not easy to develop a program this quick. They've not only developed a program, but they've developed a great program. So give them a follow at Long Island Sound. Give us a follow, Level Up Basketball, at Level Up _LI on most of our social media pages. So that'll be really exciting. And speaking of Matt Hurd and Ryan McNeely, yes, it's time to mention, and congratulations to St. Joseph's, because we're no longer a college. We are now a university. So you got to stop saying SJC, which is I don't think I'm going to be able to do it because I'm just so used to it.
I think I was still calling it St. Joseph's.
You can't call it SJU. That's St. John's. So, it's SJ New York, I guess, or SJ Long Island. We'll figure out what to say. But ultimately, congratulations to St. Joe's. It's definitely good to be, recognized a little bit more as a university. So I'm excited to see the next steps with that. As they continue to grow as a university. So good stuff on St. Joe's part. But overall, again, it's been a great week. I'm super excited to be at Citi Field tomorrow. And the last thing I'll conclude with is I'll give out the brute forces, all right, NBA awards right now to end the show, all right? I'm going to give Nikola Jokic the MVP. I'm going to give Tyler Hero the 6th Man of the Year. All right, I'm going to give Mikal Bridges All right, the defensive player of the year. Okay, I'm going to give Monty Williams the coach of the year. All right, and I'm going to give the least valuable player to Julius Randle. That's right, I said it. Least valuable player to Julius Randle. I don't think I forgot any, but I might have forgot one. So either way, we'll be looking forward to those regular season awards as well. But regular season's over. Playoffs are here. It's exciting time for the NBA and basketball, so I can't wait for it. And I can't wait for another show.
Who's winning the championship?
Oh, who's winning the championship? That's tough.
Let's say I'll be honest. Justin's.
I'll be honest with you, Chris. I mean, it's got to be. I'm going to say if it's going to be a Western Conference team, it's going to be Phoenix. And if it's going to be an Eastern Conference team, it's definitely a tough decision. I'm going to say either Miami or Milwaukee will win it out of the East. But I'll say it on the record. I'm going to go with the Phoenix Suns right now. If I had to pick, I'll go with the Phoenix Suns winning the championship.
I'm going to take the Golden State Warriors.
Really? Okay.
Okay. I'm going to take Golden State Warriors. And the only disagreement I have in his predictions, I could still argue for Rudy Gobert for Defensive Player of the Year, but I'm not going to disrespect the Mikal Bridges pick. Coach of the Year, I'm going Taylor Jenkins. I'm sorry, 2 years in a row with that talent. I'm not going to give it to Monty Williams. What Memphis did with their improvement, I got to go with Taylor Jenkins.
All right, those are some fair points here, and I gotta also, because I know Brad is frozen now, and since we are gonna go, and he actually forgot two birthday wishes, because he went on about St. Joseph's, and obviously he forgot a very important birthday wish, and that is a happy birthday, of course, to Plainview's better basketball player, one of the more better ones at Plainview, of course, Nick Nemekis, our very dear friend. It was Nick Nemekis' birthday yesterday, and I promised Nick that I would give him a happy birthday because clearly, the Brute Force forgot about it. So I want to wish Nick a very happy birthday. It's going to be a big 2022 for Nick. I was speaking with Nick yesterday, and we speak all the time on Instagram, and I want to make sure that Nick has a very, very happy birthday. I know we had it, but I still want to recognize him and wish him a very, very happy birthday. Also, thank him for all that he's done for the team. He's going to have a big year. Also want to wish Chris Connors a very happy birthday that passed here this Monday. I also want to thank Chris, obviously, for his support. He's obviously going to have also a big year. Also want to wish a happy birthday to our very good friend Ryan Highland, the John Jay College Bloodhounds men's basketball coach. Obviously, Coach Highland has been a very, very dear friend of mine for a long time, and I want to thank Coach Highland for his support, obviously. So want to wish everybody there a happy birthday, and everybody else, obviously, want to wish everybody a very happy Easter, and stay safe, stay well. Obviously, enjoy the weekend. Don't do anything crazy, and we'll be back here next week. We'll also be live here Monday. We'll be talking some professional wrestling, and Tuesday we'll be back again 6:15 with the Massachusetts Pirates. We'll get Jake Igniski. We'll do a quick recap, and the Brute Force. I guess before I go, I'm going to let him come back on, and Brad, before we get out of here, because I'm going to close out here shop, I did mention, because you forgot to mention it, I wished a happy birthday to somebody you might know played a little bit better than you in Plainview JFK, Nick Nemekis, and also Chris Connors. You might have forgot about Chris Connors. I was waiting for you to wish them a happy birthday. And also, Ryan Highland, your old nemesis of John Jay, it was his birthday yesterday over for the Bloodhounds, the men's basketball coach. So we wish them both a happy birthday. You have a quick thought on Nick Nemekis' happy birthday, at least? You want to say anything to Nick real quick? Because I'm sure I'll get this out here. And I said, Nick, we would wish him a happy birthday. You want to say anything to Nick real quick? We know he's listening.
Oh, absolutely. I love Nick. Nick's the man. Listen, I'm not going to make up any crazy stuff, all right? The kid definitely was a better player than me at Plainview. He had bigger games.
I was trying to be kind about it. I was trying to be
kind. You see, listen, I was a great role player at Plainview, all right, but I'm doing my job as a coach now. But Nick had a tremendous career. I mean, he had one of the biggest games against Baldwin, 27 points when he was there. He had some really great performances, and obviously at SJC, he's going to be a really good player too. And soon enough, we'll be talking about him being a better player than me at St. Joe's. So
no, I don't know yet. I mean, you did.
I'm feeling confident in that. So
I would hope so, because we have a bet still, and Coach Cordiaso reminded me that if we win the Skyline Championship, I would be taking the entire team to All-American Burger. Now, thankfully, I can afford that. I don't know about you if you, Brad, are able to afford that, but I can confidently say that I will be able to afford that, because obviously the good Lord has blessed me with those resources, but I know everybody else cannot say the same thing. So I hope that happens, but I definitely wish Nick a very happy birthday. I am looking forward to seeing Nick later this year, obviously, and the team as well. And also, very quickly, Pelicans Clippers 94-94, 4.5 minutes left. So that'll be an interesting finish. So not that it matters, because Justin and Brad have already said it doesn't matter who wins that game, but it definitely does matter that you are listening and watching us. We will be on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, 2:30 p.m. We'll be on at 2:30 tomorrow. We have a schedule change, so I can actually listen to the whole show, and I can get that out there. We'll also be on Roku with the Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. Talking Rivals is also on there. Also, throughout the week, they play it. We'll be on 8 o'clock, and we'll also be back here Monday and Tuesday. Tuesday, Massachusetts Pirates. You can catch that on Tobacco Road Radio. Also, Northeast Streaming Sports Channel, 6:15 on Tuesday. That'll be, I think, right around the same time for both streams. So I want to thank everybody that has tuned in. You have Chris Pazak here, the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, Justin Gianelli, also of the Baseball Banter Show, the Brute Force Brad Weiss, who will be at Citi Field tomorrow, also of the St. Joseph's, I don't know if we call it University, New York, whatever we call it, the Golden Eagles, the St. Joseph's Golden Eagles at this point. That's what we'll call it. Plainview JFK, Level Up, Long Island Nets, everything else. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you are watching us on all our streams, thank you. Good night. Happy Easter. Stay safe. If you're on sportnarium.com/player, you are getting an all-new sit-down Mark show. So if you wanted a SmackDown recap and get ready for AEW and everything else for Monday Night Raw, well, there you go. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night. We'll be back with you Monday.